not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
And welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled and excited to be with you today. We got a big show for you. In fact, it's so big that I know normally on Monday we do Jargon of the Day and we do the question of the day and the topic of the day, and we don't even have time today because we've got so much going on for you. So Traven's showing you some of the different ways that you can connect and some of the different ways that you can watch the show and some of the different ways that you can write in with your questions, comments, concerns, right? I want to remind you while he's doing that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so many things to do. You can go through our whole library of videos. You can search topics, find what you want, what makes you happy. You know, we're all about information and inspiration, and I've got those for you here today because we're going to start out the show today with Bonnie Yates, special education attorney Bonnie Yates. She's going to give you some information, right? And then we're going to switch gears in the second half of the show. We've got a wonderful guest. Erica Milsom from Pixar is going to be with us, and she's going to provide the inspiration, y'all, because she is the director of a new film that is out on Disney Plus. It's called Loop. It is a short. And we believe, we're reporting here because we can't find anything else, where a lead character, even in a short film, never before has it been done, but in her film, Loop, one of the lead characters is we're saying nonverbal, non-vocal. I know a lot of people say nonverbal. In this case, I'm not sure. Nonverbal, non-vocal, but she is. And it's a woman, a young woman, but I know so many of you have been asking for that. Well, it's here. It is here. Erica is the director of this really lovely film that I had an opportunity to see with an audience. Very moving. The film alone is moving, but to see it with an audience of individuals who are either on the spectrum or the people who love them, man, it was moving. So we're so excited that we have the opportunity to have her with us to be talking about that really wonderful film that you can be watching on Disney Plus now. So I hope you'll take the opportunity to do that and stick around for that interview with her because she's amazing. I saw her film and then she stayed for a talk back and answered questions, which was really wonderful. And then afterwards, we'll talk about it later, but she was brilliant. She was brilliant, and you know how people are, they come, they do things, but then to watch them interact, and sometimes they just don't have the time, they don't have the patience, whatever. No, this woman, real deal. Real deal. She was so amazing with all of our young people, young adults and kiddos on the spectrum. She was super awesome. I was impressed, let us say that. So that will be the second half hour. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back first with Bonnie Yates, and then stick around because Pixar, you guys, doesn't get better than that. Erica Milsom, director of the film Loop. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Autism Live. We have Bonnie Yates joining us right now on Skype. We're thrilled to have her. She is joining us from a wonderful law firm that I'm going to ask her to tell us about. Welcome, Bonnie.
Good morning. How's everybody doing this week?
We're great. We're better for you being here. How's that?
I hope everybody's getting over this horrible cold.
It's been the most miserable thing. So, Bonnie, tell them.
I would just say before I tell them what I'm supposed to tell them, it's really hard to be a sick parent taking care of children.
Yes.
It's just, it's like on top of the regular special ed hustle. So thinking about all you moms that are, you'll find your way. It's just one step in front of another. So I'm from Tollner Law Offices. We have offices in San Jose, El Segundo, and Irvine, and you can find us on the web at Tollner Law Offices. And if you're in Northern or Southern California and you want a complimentary consultation, there's a way that you can fill out the sheet right on the website. We'll get that set up for you. We're not giving legal advice on this program. We're giving advice about the IDEA and other important statutes so that you can better understand your legal position. And if you need advocacy for a specific problem, we highly recommend that you talk to an attorney in your state. And I refer you to COPA, Council of Parents and Attorneys and Advocates, COPAA.net, if you're outside of California and you need an attorney. So I thought it would be fun quickly before we meet about the question that the listener sent in. That's a very meaty question. I thought I would just talk about a little bit about the attorneys in the firm because I'm getting to know them, and they're all, really estimable individuals who bring different things to the practice. And so what I wanted to do is refer everybody to the bio page. If you go to the page where it says about our attorneys, you'll see there's a profile for each attorney, David Tollner, Jim Sibley, Sarah Fairchild, Amanda O'Neill, Joshua Cruz, Mark Wojciechowski, and Devin Brothers. And what I want the audience to do, if people are listening, I want you to go on and I want you to read the profiles, and then I want you guys to send me an email and tell me which attorney you want me to have come on the air so we can have you meet that person and interview them. And we can do more than one, but I just thought it'd be fun to sort of have some Autism Live swag to get everybody started in the new year. So check that out. I think you'll see people have interesting and different backgrounds. David Tollner was a litigator who did the whole business lawyer career, but apparently didn't like it too much, I'm surmising, because he started running a special ed school. So he did that for a while in Northern California. Jim Sibley was a career attorney with the DA's office, and he's a trial animal. And he is very expert at figuring out how to go to hearing and win. Sarah Fairchild is an all-time, all-around wonderful human being and great attorney. And you'll see in her bio, she's started a nonprofit farm for people with disabilities in Santa Cruz, California. So that's really quite extraordinary. And she told me, she moved to Santa Cruz so that she could set up this farm because the whole issue of jobs is really paramount for, young adults with disabilities. Amanda O'Neill is, to me, a very young attorney who has the killer instinct. She's very fierce and very smart, and she does disability discrimination in addition to special education and, the more standard stuff. Joshua Cruz has a litigation civil rights background, and so he does civil rights litigation for the office, and he could come on and talk to you about those kind of cases. And then Mark Wojciechowski is also somebody who came from a more traditional background. I mean, a lot of us in special ed did not, come out of corporate America, but some of us did. And, I think it's really useful to have had those kinds of experiences. I think they, toughen people up as lawyers. So he's a litigator. He's been a litigator for almost 30 years. He's had lots and lots and lots of jury experience. And so he's also, in addition to the IDEA, he's very familiar with doing special education, disability discrimination, and ADA claims in civil courts. So you'll also see that in some instances, people have talked about their more personal experience with their children in their bios, and it won't surprise you that nearly everyone in this office of 8 attorneys has a disability background by virtue of having somebody close to them have a disability. So I'm not going to talk about people's personal experiences, but you can read it on their bio. Devin Brothers is a quite extraordinary person. She started out working at Harbor Regional Center as a service coordinator, and she worked there for 6 years. And essentially the people at Regional Center and at DDS said to her, "You're so good at this, you need to go to law school." So Devin brings a very kind of meticulous focus to the work, and she just knows a tremendous amount about how the regional center system works and how people in these institutions think. And she brings that knowledge to her work in special ed disputes as well as regional center disputes. And I'm lucky enough to work alongside her in Southern California, where she brings her care and meticulous focus to helping families, and I see every day how much she cares and goes that extra mile. So those are the attorneys, and I'm pretty excited about the strike force, and you can vote, and then we'll arrange to have some folks come on the air and you can meet them.
So
Okay, Shannon?
that's wonderful. But Bonnie, do you want them to write to you specifically, or do you want them to write into us?
Let's have them write into you.
Okay.
Just all you need to do is send a quick one-liner. I want so-and-so.
Okay.
You can tell what you want so-and-so to talk about.
So I'm going to tell folks that you can do that. You can either email me directly at s.penrod@autism-live.com, or you can write into us on Facebook or Twitter or, YouTube, whatever you prefer, or on the homepage. We will get all of those and aggregate those and get back to you, Bonnie, and let you know who our first guest will be.
Great.
Which sounds like a fun thing. Okay.
We have 8 minutes for the question, right?
Well, I think we can do it in 8 minutes. I think we can.
Yeah, it's a really great question.
Okay, so I'm going to read it for Bonnie. Hi there, I have 2 questions. My son earns screen time based on his day at school, excuse me, ever since he's been in 6th grade. They do not tell me how or what he is doing, so therefore we have it set up at home. It no longer works. Can a daily note be put in his IEP? Second thing, is my son able to tell me about the day? He has mentioned several bad days and allergy infractions which were unreported by the school staff at school. He knows he can't have gluten or dairy, and just yesterday he told me he ate his friend's burger that wasn't gluten-free and it was nasty, and the teacher did not make him spit it out. Named the teacher by name. Can I take my 11-year-old son out of 6th grade? So now we're on to question 3. Can I take my 11-year-old out of 6th grade and homeschool him for this and up his hours at CARD for educational goals? Are they violating FAPE? And thank you, I'm so disappointed in my son's school. Okay, where do you want to wade in first?
Well, her most immediate pressing concern is whether she can take her child out and homeschool him, notwithstanding the fact that he's 11 years old. Does she tell us whether she's in California or not?
She does not tell us whether she's in California, but she does say that she's a CARD client.
Well, I mean, that could mean she's a client,
I know.
Zimbabwe or something.
That's true.
So I'm going to answer this according to California law, and just know that the right to homeschool your children is a state-by-state thing, and different states have different rules. I don't know the other states' rules. In California, there's a very, very liberal definition of what constitutes a private school. And so in California, if you want to homeschool your child, there's no requirement that you be able to demonstrate to the state that you're using a particular curriculum or any type of curriculum at all. You can make your own curriculum, and so there's really no oversight. There's a very small administrative requirement that in October of any given year, you go into the California Department of Education website and you file a private school affidavit, which is a 2-page form, and it basically just says name, address, name of child, and so on. And then you're good to go. And you're pretty much on your own at that point. You're no longer accountable to any attendance boards or anything like that. You just have to file that application. So the way that it works is once you file the private school affidavit, your home becomes a private school. And if you want to, you could even name it like Bonnie's Happy, Cake Mix Baking School, Homeschool or something, I don't know. But there's really no requirements on you. You can do it however you want. And if you were to get a letter from the SAR board, you would just show them your homeschool affidavit, and that would be the end of it. The thing I sense, though, is this mom doesn't ultimately want to have to be in the position that her best option is to homeschool her son. She really wants to be able to be in a partnership with a school where there's integrity and there's accountability. So her first question was, can the IEP team be required to send home a daily communication log and tell me what's going on with my son's day? And can the IEP team be required to be honest with me and tell me about things that if they were a parent, they would want to know about their kid's day, right? That's my feel of where she's starting now. And she wants to know if she can homeschool in the event that she can't get this sorted out. So she should write them a letter. She should explain why she thinks that these things are a denial of her right to meaningfully participate in the IEP team, because she can't really know what's going on at school, so she can't really contribute to the IEP team when there's a discussion about what his unique needs are. There's no law that says they have to send home a daily communication book, or that the book that they send has to be adequately explanatory about what's going on that day. And we see some people have a weekly, some people have it daily. A lot of them are just kind of going through the motions because they don't want to do it. So they'll put on like some sort of little sticker on the page and say, he had a great day, happy face. And, you kind of want to go and like write, on your own face, a happy face, and go, well, that was helpful. That's the hard part. My observation, and only mine, is that districts have a policy of trying to make as little work for themselves as possible, and part of that seems to devolve into not filling in parents on what goes on at school because it's extra work for them. And that's a bad attitude, and it's got to stop. And I'm tired of seeing attention being paid when kids are hurting other kids or hurting themselves, but, for the good kids who need some extra support too, this kind of communication is very necessary. What's unusual in this situation is her son is actually reporting on what is going on in the classroom, and it seems accurate to me. So I'd give it a try. I'd have an IEP team meeting. I'd let them know that my son is reporting these things to me, and I would not take, well, he's making that up as an answer. I'd be very polite with them. I'd tell them you want to collaborate with them, but you're very concerned about the lack of information, and we need to resolve this now because you don't want to be in a dispute with them. Don't tell them you're going to homeschool. Let them think whatever they think. Maybe they think you're going to file for due process. Make it so that they have a way to back out gracefully for now and see what happens and keep documenting it. And yes, this lack of communication could rise to the level of a denial of faith. You'd have to have a lot of incidents, and you'd have to have a lot of serious incidents. But it's got to get addressed,
Yeah.
Let me give, since I have 1 minute, according to my clock, we have a child that had a school observation plan for the day. Our psychologist went out there. The student's regular aide, I guess I'm trying to remember how the facts go. The school district had set up the observation to avoid having the observer see anything, which is sometimes what they do. And later, she found out, the evaluator, from the student's aide, who was really quite supportive of the family, that this was not an ordinary day at all, and that they had, really changed his schedule to put him in a better light, and also that before the observer got there, he'd had a huge meltdown with a 30-minute full-on tantrum. And so this was another way in which the observer was not seeing a normal day. So, I'm very cynical in my old age, and I just call them like I see them. They chose to hide this, and they do choose to hide things. And on the other hand, we do these classroom observations where we're like, God, I can't believe they let that happen with us there. So it's all over the map, but my words are integrity and accountability. And I don't think you've got integrity in your situation, and I don't think you've got accountability in your situation, and that's not fair to your child.
Great advice. Absolutely love it. And unfortunately, we're out of time.
Okay.
But Bonnie, tell them how they can get a hold of Tollner and Associates.
You can go to the website. I think everything you need is on the website, Tollner Law Offices. There's the consultation form. There's all the phone numbers, the email, where to reach me. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Great question, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much for being with us, Bonnie.
All right. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Happy Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then we are going to be back right after these messages with our very special guest. If you guys have not yet seen the wonderful new short film from Pixar, Loop, you're going to be so excited because we're going to be talking with the director of that short film, the first film that we're aware of that has a leading character who is nonverbal. So stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bure.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is my great honor right now to introduce our next guest. She is an award-winning writer, director, and editor. She is here today to talk with us about her new film, Loop, which is a Pixar short and is just tearing it up. You're going to be very excited to hear about it for a very specific reason. But first of all, let's welcome Erica Milsom, director of this lovely film. Hi, Erica. I'm so excited that you're here. For those of you, I talked a little bit about this after the fact, but the Ed Asner Family Center had their holiday party, and I went to it, and they were debuting a series of Pixar shorts, and Loop was one of them, and Erica was there to speak to the audience. And first of all, we love Loop. We're gonna let you talk about Loop here in a second, but we also love you, because you were amazing. You stayed afterwards to do a talk back. And then after that was over, the kids lined up to talk to you. And by kids, I mean everybody from, I think the youngest one was 3 years old up through adults. I count myself as one of the kids lined up to talk to you. And I just really appreciated the amount of time and effort that you put in to meet with each and every one of those individuals. They were so touched and moved. I think we all were. So I just had to say, you're the real deal, and I'm super impressed, and we were so excited that you had this time to do this. So welcome. And now, tell us about Loop. Tell us what it's about and where people can watch it and when.
That's great. Thank you for asking that. It's actually, so Loop is a short film that was made through a new program at Pixar called the Spark Shorts program, which is, I think, a super exciting program overall. It's exploring new voices and new stories that are coming out at Pixar. We're making the films pretty fast compared to our traditional feature and short film pipeline, but I think that's kind of awesome because it's letting us be more experimental, more a broader set of stories than we might be able to bring to the screen otherwise. So we made it, before we had a place to put it, we were making these short films, and then Disney Plus came to be, and it's just like this amazing space where we can now place these new short films in collections and let people watch them. So Loop premiered last Friday on Disney Plus, and you can find it by going to Disney Plus. And then if you do the Spark Shorts series there's just so many good short films in that series. So did that answer your question?
Yes, so we can watch it now on Disney Plus. I have to ask this question because the fact that it just debuted, does that make you eligible for next year's Oscars?
I'm looking at our yes, it possibly. Does it make us eligible for next year's Oscars?
It will be.
It will be, yeah. So we did qualify the shorts, Float, Wind, and Loop, which debuted in the a timeline that they'll be eligible for next year's Oscars, and we did qualify them by playing them theatrically. So yeah.
Well, wonderful. Because I think it's worthy. I definitely think it's worthy. So let me be one of the first people to say that. I will look forward to seeing Loop on the list for next year, for 2021. So part of the reason why, we love Pixar and we love good animation and we love a good short, right? But there's a bigger reason why we felt like having you on to talk about Loop. We believe, we're reporting that it's the only instance that we're aware of that a leading character is someone who is considered nonverbal. And if somebody can, come up with something, but as far as we're aware of, it is the first time that is happening. So tell folks, obviously we don't want to give much away, but about, in particular, this character that's in the film and what they might want to know before watching.
Oh, great. When I first started thinking about what story I wanted to tell with Loop, I was really thinking about experiences that I'd had in my life that maybe I had never seen on screen before. And I had worked at different points with adults with disabilities and young people with disabilities, and had been in a lot of spaces where there were very different communication styles at play, and oftentimes a broad variety of communication styles at play. And I always felt like people who are nonverbal have this fascinating way of connecting, but it's a very private language, right? Like it's a language that oftentimes family members, teachers, friends can learn, but it's not something that's ubiquitous. Like you can't take a Rosetta Stone class on how to communicate with a person who is nonverbal necessarily. You have to find your way together, and I thought that would be a great story. Number one, I just was like, if you're trying to tell a story, a lot of times in Pixar shorts, there's there's no dialogue. So I was like, well, I want to have dialogue because I like writing character dialogue, and I like characters who particularly talk a lot. But I was like, I also wanted to have this character who had a different way of communicating. So when I was right off the bat, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Why is she nonverbal? And I think that's a thing that not everybody has thought about in Loop. It's like, she is autistic, but we never say that in the film itself, within the body of the film, because most people, when they have an interaction with a person who has a different set of abilities, they're not diagnosticians. They don't know, that you're autistic or that you have cerebral palsy or that you are, maybe sometimes you'll know someone is deaf if they let you know, but a lot of times we don't know that. We just know what we don't know. We don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how to connect. So that was the original idea for the film. And then we quickly realized we needed to really understand, why is she nonverbal? That in order to make a really truthful, honest portrayal of a character who people could really connect to, we needed to kind of analyze our character and understand that. So that's when I got together with a bunch of different parents at Pixar whose children have communication differences and talked about how their child might react to this canoe situation, because I knew I wanted it to be in a canoe. And it was just so interesting listening to parents of autistic people talking about things they knew about their kids and how their kids would react. And I was like, wow, that would be powerful storytelling, powerful drama. And then I immediately was like, I need to not just talk to parents, I need to talk to autistic people and start to understand how they would experience this journey. So that was how I found the idea for the character. who is a non-speaking autistic girl. It was kind of a circuitous journey to that, but I'm so grateful that we did choose autism as the reason that she doesn't speak, because it kind of opened up this beautiful, this I don't want to say Pandora's box. I want to say it opened up a lot of learning for everyone who was on Loop, where we got to speak with autistic people, to study different, all these wonderful people who are talking about their experience on the internet, and sort of start to understand like the different styles of communication, some of the different mannerisms, the different perceptive input, the way that they are receiving sensory experience, and how that can change your story. It was amazing. It was such a profound process making this film, and I feel like it opened a door at the studio that we just, like if you're not making a film about something, you may not have a reason to really start to be curious about it and study it. And then by study, I mean explore and consider. And I think that being creators, the wonderful creators at Pixar, like everyone is so excited about learning and then portraying that, like finding a way to both caricature and animation, but also like visualize and filmically create a story with the new information that we learn from the process of making the film.
That's a great answer. And
okay, sorry.
that's great. When you were there the night of the Ed Asner Center, you had the opportunity to watch a room full of people who are somewhere in the autism community. There were parents, there were people on the spectrum of all ages, in both categories, and you got to watch a room full of people watch this film. I'm curious, were you able to notice what was happening among the audience? Because I felt it, but I'm just curious, were you too busy watching other things to notice what happened in the audience? It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I feel like I loved watching that film with that audience, and on some level, it felt, I've made a couple of other films before, and so the first viewing with an audience that aren't your friends or your colleagues is always like super nerve-wracking. You're like, are they gonna like it? And that audience, I felt like it was so great watching it with them, because I did definitely feel a sense of familiarity and a sense of affection for the character, and that it just like it calms your nerves as a filmmaker. Like, oh, okay, I didn't do something that everyone feels like, what did they say about my experience? I didn't feel like that. I felt like a connection. But I'm curious about you, because like that just for me, I was so nervous that by the time we actually finished, I was like, oh, good, the Sally Field, like they liked it.
Well, I think
that's about what I felt.
we more than liked it. What was very interesting to me was that, and we watched several different shorts, and as I said, there was quite a mix of people that were there in the audience, and they were having different experiences and different challenges to be able to sit and watch film after film after film. And there was one person that I was seated very close to who was having a vocalization that they were vocalizing throughout the films. And as an audience that's very used to that, we all that became the hum below the films, and everybody just had sort of accepted that. But it was very interesting that Loop started, and we got about, a minute in, and everybody realized what was happening, even though some of us already knew. And it was very interesting because everything got quiet, including the individual who had kept the hum going. And I watched that individual lean closer.
Oh, that's so cool.
Isn't
that's
it?
So cool to know. Wow.
And I feel like we all leaned closer. It was like something magical is happening here that's bigger than all of us. And it was so, I don't know the right word. Cathartic doesn't cover it. It was being accepted. It was like, oh, we've reached the point where we are accepted enough, our community, because everybody fell in love with both characters, the two main characters, and I don't want to give anything away, but I will say that you're very clever. You're a very clever writer, because the other character who, you know, is having this experience with this young woman, and the way that their relationship unfolds is so brilliant, because you found a very positive way to allow for somebody to say, I'm uncomfortable, I don't really want to do this is hard for me, which is what we're all feeling when we're having to change our mode of communication. But to watch that in this very specific character and to see the transformation, it was just beautiful and healing. I think healing is the word I want.
Amazing. So amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I appreciate that so much.
No, I was so moved. You know, my husband and I were having a mop down, and I think that was the response among all the parents, that we were like, oh, you know. But to see the young people and their response and the level of excitement. You know, the thing that occurred to me afterwards, I remember Whoopi Goldberg talking about what she felt like as a child when she watched Star Trek and saw Lieutenant Uhura, a black woman who was in a position of authority, and she was like, oh, okay. That's what it felt like.
You know, it's interesting because Chrissy Kababa, our producer, she always talks about that moment. She's a woman of color, and she's like, it's so profound when you haven't seen yourself on the screen very much in life, to when you finally do, that experience of being seen is so profound.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's funny because, like, I guess that I am so grateful that happened, and I'm so excited every time someone tells me that they felt like seen and that we got something that's true about their experience. It makes me super duper happy. But I also want to remind people, like, to me, this story was about two fascinating characters who had very specific outlooks on the world, specific points of view. They have specific challenges with each other that provide for good friction and good, you know, heartfelt storytelling. And that I don't really understand why more characters with disabilities or with differences haven't been explored in this way on the screen, because they are really interesting. Most of us who are storytellers are looking for a space where there's someone who has something strong to give you as an audience, right? Who can really transform your experience of what you believe about the human experience, or who can transform the idea of who you can connect to. I feel like that's a very wonderful and common part of being a filmmaker or a storyteller. And to me, that's what I got from Renee. Like, that's, you know, the power of her character was really helpful throughout the whole story. I was, like, very grateful that I got to make that, you know, that I could make that choice. But, and I'm grateful that it transformed what people felt about representation on the screen, right? Like, that they are not ignored, and, like, it's amazing to do it through Pixar, because we do have such a grand footprint in terms of storytelling. So I feel like it was that is such a beautiful convergence to get to tell a small story at a big studio about a group of people who are really present and really interesting and have, like, an experience of the world that's so, you know, so it's something we can all learn from. And I loved that it could be a part of our story. But it's so, you know, so it's always interesting, like, wow, well, I'm not sure why there aren't more of these. I hope that Luke helps people feel like, oh, okay, let me see what other stories there are to tell with characters who might not have the same communication style, or characters who are autistic, who have a different viewpoint on the world. And that exploration of point of view as we look forward, and autistic filmmakers and storytellers, by the way, also.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I want to know now about the young woman who did the voiceover for this character, because she does produce sound. That's a very important part of the film, although it's not, a language that we are necessarily familiar with until the film starts. But so tell us about the actress that you had doing this role.
Great. So the actress is named Madison Bandy, and call to a lot of nonprofits. I had worked in special ed, worked with special ed groups and with adults with disabilities. I know a lot of the landscape of the Bay Area and where we might possibly find creative people who are nonverbal. So we sent out a casting call to a bunch of places, and Creative Growth. Creative Growth. There's several of these art organizations in the Bay Area, but the one in Oakland, Creative Growth, was like, hey, our weekend program with young adults has two young women who are both vocalize a lot. They're autistic and they're great artists, and I think they didn't tell me they were autistic. They just said they vocalize a lot. So I went out and I kind of sat there awkwardly next to these two girls and, introduced myself and then just like watched them make art, which was wonderful. What a great way to audition someone, right? Yeah. And with Madison, she vocalizes a lot while she creates things. She vocalizes while she's listening to music on the radio. Her family is very musical, so I think she's really moved by music. And I just thought her voice was amazing and really expressive, and you can feel, if you just sat next to her and closed your eyes, you could feel a lot of feelings coming through the way she used her voice. So, and when I first met her, she did a little echolalia. She would say this line from the Goonies that was, "Get out of here." She said that a lot, but otherwise she wasn't using any words. And it was really interesting because kind of akin to Loop, like the more that I hung out with her, then I went and I talked to her parents and we got connected and visited and just sort of made a connection with each other before we started working on the film. And the more interactions we had, the more comfortable we got with each other, the more like words she would use with me. So she's not entirely non-speaking. But when I don't know, I think there's something to her voice that's so powerful and exciting. And I feel like you feel it when you're watching Loop, that you can feel emotionality in her voice, and you can feel that intriguing sense of like, I don't know what she's saying, but I'm curious what she is saying. Yeah. And that's kind of, at Pixar, it's interesting because they choose the talent for all the films. The casting people, they've talked to me about this before, they're always looking for a voice that kind of jumps out. Like, it's not, there's actors who are amazing who you want to watch how they perform, and their voice is a part of their performance. But when you take away the picture, the voice doesn't jump off the screen. And so I think, we always cast these phenomenal characters whose voices like leap off the screen at you and give the animators a lot of energy that they can create with. And I feel like Madison is exactly that. Like, her voice was something that the animators could really feel and grab onto and figure out how to create an emotional performance alongside or, in concert with that voice.
And so you spend all this time, but then when you got to the actual, directing and recording her, were there challenges, and do you feel like maybe you were better at meeting those challenges because of your previous experience? Tell us a little bit about what it was like.
It was this interesting, it's funny because I almost didn't think of it as challenging, which probably it is, but I felt like it was so fun and creative. Like, that the challenge of like, what are we going to do to create a performance here, just felt like, oh, let's go in this together. Let's collaborate with Madison. Let's collaborate with her family, because I think many times, like, that's something that, in my experience, working with folks with disabilities, like, there's often a support network who are really helpful and can facilitate things that people want to do. And that's maybe my background, because I have a background in special ed and in accommodations and working with people with disabilities. Like, I always look at accommodations as just like a nice way to adapt your own process to question like why what you're doing doesn't work for the person in front of you. And so like we brought Madison in for a moment, just like put her in front of a mic, not to record it at all, but just to be like, how does this feel? And it was super distracting. Pixar, if you have a sensory processing difference, Pixar's a lot of sensory processing to happen. So it was really the big way that we made an accommodation was to go to her house, basically, and do all the recording in her house with our people there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we are so excited about this film, and so people can watch this now. It's available now, and the film is called Loop. And I understand that you right now you mentioned documentaries, that you're working on a documentary right now that's a behind the scenes at Pixar. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're pulling together a new series that'll be launching, I think, in the spring. I'm not quite sure when it launches, but yeah, I rolled off of Loop and then rolled into a new, it's another Disney Plus thing. So I'll have a lot of Disney Plus stuff.
Yeah,
but that won't be out for a while. Yeah, I like to work in a lot of different mediums. So Loop was an amazing experience in animation, and then it's fun to go back to documentary, and then, yeah, I like it all. I like all the filmmaking parts.
Well, we're appreciative of you. I mean, you said earlier, I don't understand why people aren't telling more of these stories, and I think that there are lots of reasons why. Fear being the top of the list, right? And so you going ahead and doing it, I think, is the most helpful thing that can happen to make more of this happen. And from all the things that you've said, I think that you are unique in that you demonstrate willingness and an openness and patience. That's what I hear from you, the level of patience and the willingness to be able to change what's happening and not say my process is the process, an openness and a willingness to look at, and the patience to look at what somebody else's process is. And heaven knows we need more of that in the world, so thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. This is so cool. I'm excited that you guys are telling these stories.
Well, this is a big treat for us. And we're going to be looking forward to our viewers watching Loop. So they can go to Disney Plus and watch that today. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank everybody at Pixar.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Remarkable story. And you guys watch the film. It's a short, so it's a blip of time in your life, but you will be changed. We are going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to close out the show. So stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back, everybody. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how much we appreciate you guys being here. Big set of shows this week with wonderful guests. Looking forward to having you guys write in this week and participate with us, because that's the thing that's most exciting for us. Thank you for being here with us with our wonderful guests. Please go watch Loop. It's a great reason to get Disney Plus. You won't want to miss it. We also love right now the other short, Float, and hopeful to have that director be joining us as well. So check that out while you're there too. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and glad to have my cohort back.
Glad to be back, Shannon.
Thrilled that you're here.
I know.
And we got a big show, too.
Yes, we do.
We've got a very special guest that we both adore,
Yeah.
Christina Adams, who is author of the new book, Camel Crazy. But before that, she was author of the book, A Real Boy. And that was really what brought me to CARD.
Right.
That and the fact that I was given the book by a mom who was a CARD mom.
A Real Boy, to me, was one of the best books ever written on autism.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sort of became my autism Bible for like a year.
Right.
And like I had that book with me so many places that it got like waterlogged and had stains all over it. And I went and bought a new one and then, met a mom and I was like, oh, you got to read this book. And so I've always had like a couple of copies of it around because then I give them away and then I never have any copies.
Right. I gave it to a lot of people. I recommended it to all moms when their kids were newly diagnosed.
Yeah. I think it's a great book, and we've always said to her, when are you going to write the sequel to everything that happened after you left CARD, all of those things, and it's finally here. It's finally
Her journey
out.
with the camels is truly amazing.
Which goes completely in a different direction than how anybody ever thinks anything is going to be. But she's a remarkable woman. I remember sitting and reading and seeing that she lived somewhere in Southern California, and I was like, I want to meet this woman. I want to meet her. I want to know her.
I met her at a doctor's office where we both took our sons for early intervention. Dr. Michael Goldberg, she did his protocol for a while.
Well, and it was years later for me, and there was a video that they had of her, and I was like, that's what she looks like. And I remember asking her to be on Autism Live in the very early days. I was like, well, I got to have her on the show. And I was so nervous and excited, and now I consider her a friend.
Yeah,
Don't you
I do too.
consider her a friend?
Absolutely.
And I'm always like a little like, oh, look at me, friends with Christina Adams, because she was such an icon to me.
Yes.
And such.
And she hosts a segment on Autism Live.
We have a running segment with her that Autism and Beyond that we filmed with her.
Right.
That's her. That's Christina, and she's just a fascinating, fascinating
she sure
lady.
is. I can't wait to interview her today. Somebody that I surely respect. And they say that when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, and that you have many great teachers in your life, and I count her as one of my great teachers in my life. So love that she's going to be here with us. And first we have some news. We have some in the news stories.
First of all, I love Spectrum News.
They have some great
I respect
articles.
them, and we a lot of times we'll refer to articles and send you over there, and I really think that they do a great job of covering news. No offense to Spectrum News, but there is an article that is running right now with the title, the headline is, Study Finds Thin Evidence for Early Autism Therapies. And I went, what?
Right. How could that be? That early intervention is not effective. That just can't be.
And it's a bad title.
Right.
If you read the article, what it goes on to say is that basically there have been 2 studies that looked at, and they were meta-analysis. So a meta-analysis is when you're not doing study work of your own, you're taking a group of studies, grouping them together and looking at what, if you group them together, do you get any different information? Now, meta-analysis studies are great because sometimes it says, well, this study and this study, and if you put them together, then you've got an interesting thing. But sometimes it's a reach because you're asking the research to do something that the researchers didn't intend it to do. So you've got to be careful with a meta-analysis. So they took this article is about 2 different meta-analysis studies. One where they were looking at a wide variety of different therapies, including things like the Denver Early Start model, a bunch of different things, but not just pure ABA.
Right.
So a bunch of different things, but not, and even things that you might use in conjunction with ABA, but not pure ABA. And they looked at those things. And what the meta-analysis found is not that those things aren't effective, but that the research done on them wasn't what they call robust.
Right.
That there wasn't enough data about things in order to draw a clear conclusion. So that's what the thin evidence is. The study wasn't robust enough, not the evidence, the parameters of the study. The other meta-analysis that they were looking at was for PRT, pivotal response therapy, which is something that you can use in conjunction with ABA, but
on its own, it's not ABA. It's just like a tool that you can use a method that you can use within ABA. And same thing, they expected to find that it was wildly effective, but what they found was that the study wasn't robust enough and they didn't look at enough of the right things. So none of the studies were conclusive, and none of them were looking at the single biggest early therapy that is done, the one that insurance pays for, which is ABA. So I'm going to call foul on this title.
Okay. Fair enough.
It didn't find thin evidence for early autism therapies. It found that they're not doing research effectively for things that are in addition to ABA that are considered early therapies.
Right, right.
That's what the...
So ABA is not in this
They didn't look
article.
at ABA.
No, they didn't.
They
And
didn't
then
look at ABA.
a speech-language pathologist that was quoted in the article says, an individualized approach that uses evidence-based methods is probably best.
Right. Right. Well, and most
And
of the
ABA is
evidence
evidence-based.
around ABA,
Right.
which is why insurance pays for it.
Yes.
So, but even if you're looking at some of those other therapies, like a speech and language pathologist approach, like the Denver Early Start model, which uses elements of ABA, even if you were interested in those things, you couldn't conclusively rule out that they're effective from these studies.
Right.
So there you go. How useful is that to us? However, there's another study out that claims that 1 in 4 children with autism is undiagnosed.
Which is horrifying.
It is horrifying, and worse than that is that it says that there's a particular group of people that are more likely to be undiagnosed. Share with us.
Black or Hispanic, most of the kids. And this is from Autism Research. And about 1 in every 4 8-year-olds assessed in the study was found to have undiagnosed autism and wasn't receiving any services.
Yeah. Well, and look, I think this is probably very accurate. 1 in 4. It might even be worse than that.
Right.
Because we see on a daily basis how many people write into us and go, my child is 7 or 8. And, I remember me saying something to the pediatrician at 3, and they said, no. And you and I have been through the experience of taking our child at least once to a credible pediatrician and saying, I feel like something is wrong. And they told both of us, no.
No, nothing's wrong.
Nothing's
or
wrong.
Or misdiagnosed, in Wyatt's case, pervasive developmental disorder, when he clearly was firmly on the autism spectrum.
But didn't even that take you a while to get the PDD NOS?
Oh, yeah.
Like the first time around, I know for Jem, and I was like, I'm concerned, he's lost words. And that pediatrician should have been like, well, we need to rule everything out, including strokes, right? But she was like, he's fine, you're being overreactive, you late in life mothers.
I had got the same thing.
So, and we are 2 very pushy white women with a great command of the English language who aren't worried about our green card, who feel very entitled to argue with a doctor. And it took us a while. So
you can imagine the average person.
Yeah, right. It's horrifying to think about. So there you go. And then our great article that was on The Hill. You guys familiar with thehill.com, which is all about things that are happening in Washington, D.C. And I thought it was interesting because you don't often see much about autism on The Hill.
No, you don't.
And so they had an article this week that said, what autism researchers and advocates want for people on the spectrum. And I thought, well, I want to know what The Hill thinks that bless you, that autism advocates want. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So you can go and read it on The Hill.
Yeah. And did you hear that Democratic Joshua Collins would be the first openly autistic member if elected for Congress?
Yes, he's running for Congress. In fact, we've reached out to his office to see if he would like to be on the show. We would love to have him on here. No, I think that would be truly wonderful. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, a good takeaway from this article is at one point they spoke to Wendy Ross. She's a developmental pediatrician and director of the Center for Autism and Neurodiversity at Jefferson Health. CNN said that they labeled her a CNN hero in 2014. And her center has been working, like a lot of places, on something called universal design. And universal design is meant to make spaces and
whether it's education or medical facilities. It's supposed to be so that anyone can walk in the door and be able to access, whether you're a person on the spectrum, whether you're blind, whether you're deaf, whether you have a physical disability, because we all get a little ableist, don't we?
Yes.
And so that's one of the things that they've been doing. And in particular, I love that they're trying to train their people. She says, what we are aiming to do in the hospital is create a universal design that would benefit not only people with ASD, but everyone, including people with mental health issues. They're also working to train all types of medical staff on recognizing ASD and familiarizing them with the symptoms. And that's not so that they can diagnose people. It's so that when they're treating someone comes in the door and says, you know, I need help, or is signing or whatever, for them to be able to recognize, okay, this might be a person who, and be looking for that.
Right.
I know I still don't necessarily look for that, right? I always tell the story of being at Disneyland when Jem was little, and, you know, we were well into therapy, and, you know, and I well knew what autism was. And there was a little boy who went darting past us in one of the shops out in the Disney walk outside. And I'm always on the alert. My mother raised me, if there's a kid on their own, to identify and go, lost child, you know, call over people to help, stay with the child. And I did. I said to my husband, get somebody, I'm going to stay and take Jem with you, and I'm going to stay with this kid. And I followed him and he hid underneath a clothes rack. And I went up to him and I said, hey, honey, are you lost? Are you here with somebody? And he said nothing and hid his face. And then at a certain point, I asked him another question, and he started signing. And I was like, oh, he's deaf, right?
Right.
But he wasn't making eye contact. And the worker came over, and I said, you know, do you have anybody who can sign? I only know a couple of signs, but apparently he's deaf, right? And I'm telling everybody, he's deaf, right? Like all these things. Well, here comes Mom, and she's like, he's not deaf. He's nonverbal, and he has autism. And she looked at me like, you know nothing. And of course, I wasn't going to sit there and go, well, here, meet my child.
Right.
But because I felt like an idiot.
Right.
It never occurred to me.
Right.
Never even occurred to me. And I thought, boy, if it's not occurring to me, who else is it occurring to?
Right.
So I love this. The article goes on to talk about some of the ways that they've tried to make public spaces more accessible. So it's a good read. Check it out. The Hill.
She also says we don't have a medical system that's prepared to serve everyone with autism that is now being diagnosed.
Yeah. Well, anybody who has a kiddo on the spectrum of any age who's been to an emergency room, we're all well aware of that, right? I mean, that is just the truth.
Yeah.
So good on her for recognizing it and trying to do something about it. So that is in The Hill.
Okay.
But we've got a wonderful guest, Christina Adams.
We're going to take a break and come back with Christina Adams.
That's right. So stick with us.
Neurodiversity in parents. One big happy family? We hope so. Anyway, what is neurodiversity? Everybody's talking a lot about it these days. Neurodiversity means that there's a view that people with autism just have a different way of being, and they should be honored for that. And then parents oftentimes look at autism as a disability or a disorder, and that can create some conflict. We sometimes throw up our hands, neurodiversity or neurodiversity. There can actually be some issues around this that we need to think about together. First of all, neurodiversity could be positive because it can create more of kind of a sense of acceptance in society. Yes, these people have autism, they're just different. It could possibly help create a sense of self-esteem that's improved in people with autism. They just realize, okay, I'm not damaged, I'm not bad, whatever, I'm just different. So that could be useful. On the downside, it could be an excuse to not give services to people with autism, to not have much empathy for their parents, and to not look at ways that they can be helped. And in many people that have autism, they do very well. Other people do not do well at all. They can't access services. They cannot enjoy their life. They're in pain. So it is important that we understand it's not just one issue. So how do we solve this when we look at neurodiversity? I think we have to look at it this way. It's kind of like when you have that big family dinner at Thanksgiving and everybody's around the table. You got your uncle, your aunt, your kids, your parents. Everyone has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mesh. And I think the way that we need to think about this is we need to respect each other's opinion, because actually we need each other. We need to be allies on this. The outside world is a big place for people with autism spectrum disorders and their families. We have to remember, we're one big, happy, dysfunctional family, and we need to behave that way. We should respect each other, listen to each other, and we will all have a great time when it comes time to get together and celebrate the lives of people with autism.
And we're back, and as promised, and you just saw her actually,
yes, the
on Autism and Beyond, we're back with Christina Adams. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Nancy and Shannon.
We're so thrilled to have you back. We were saying before that you have been a guiding light for so many of us, that you are an incredible, we consider you a friend, and you're an incredible woman, an incredible advocate in the autism community. We loved your first book, A Real Boy. We love your current book, Camel Crazy. And so we're thrilled to have you back on the show with us to talk about this new book. This book is tearing it up, and it should be. You received so many accolades with it. I understand, is it what Harvard said that it's a must read? Tell us, because I can't remember, but it's like so many people have been raving about this book.
Well, that's very nice. I wouldn't, the Harvard Co-op bookstore has it, which I find wonderful that it's on their shelves. I'd like to contrast that with Slab City, an eccentric artist type of place out in the California desert. They also have it in their library in a trailer in the desert. So we're very accessible with Camel Crazy.
And who was it? Was it Barnes and Noble that has it in their must-read fiction section?
Must-read nonfiction.
Nonfiction,
yes,
of course, nonfiction.
I'm very glad to see it on that table. You know, every author wants to be on that table up front when you walk into the door, and I was just lucky that it was there. So, yeah, the camels are just stampeding. It's been on the Public Library of Science blog, a DNA genetics blog. It was featured on that, and that was really great to see. It's also just been selected as a Southern California Science Writers Book Club selection, and I'll do their podcast as well.
Great.
Amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey. First, let's talk about A Real Boy and what that book was about.
Well, A Real Boy was, it's actually the first book, if you want to call this a set. Camel Crazy is a sequel to A Real Boy. Both of them are standalone books, but if you read them, first A Real Boy and then Camel Crazy, you get the whole picture. So as we all were before we came into the autism world, we're just minding our own business, doing our thing in life, and then you get put into the autism world if you want to help your child. And so that I had been a professional writer in my life, and so I just turned all those skills into kind of living the autism story, processing the autism story as far as being a parent of a small person with autism, and realizing what was going on in that world, which was both great and not so great. So I wanted to tell that story because at that time when A Real Boy came out, there was no book that told the whole story. There were really good influential books that told, more about the diet piece or more about the behavioral piece, but I didn't find there was one that told that whole, emotional and interventional story. So I wrote that book, A Real Boy, A True Story of Autism, Early Intervention and Recovery. So after that book came out, which it did, we got a lot of good coverage in the Washington Post and did several printings, and people are still buying it, so that's wonderful. But then I was just minding my own business, back to doing that, because we like to do, keep our personalities and interests alive despite, dealing with autism all the time as parents. So I was at a children's book festival and met a guy with a camel, and that's what led to the new one, Camel Crazy, A Quest for Miracles in the Mysterious World of Camels.
So I was just going to say, one of the things that I love about you as a writer is that you're a brilliant writer, and let's face it, there are lots of books about moms' journeys with autism, right? But, and it's like chapter one, and then we go through, this thing, and we get this, and they're good books, I don't mean to disparage. But with your book, it's like a car pulls up,
and somebody opens the door and says, come on, I'm going to take you on a journey. And you get to go on. I said, I read your book and I was like, I want to know this woman because I feel like I already do. And you take us on a journey where I don't feel like I'm reading something that's educating me, but it is. It's like you just have a way of taking us with you that is so beautiful. You are a wordsmith. You just dive into the book and you feel like you're on this ride together with somebody and that you're going to end up in a place where you didn't expect to be, but that you're richer for it. And certainly that was true in A Real Boy, and certainly that is true in Camel Crazy. But then all the information that you give us on top of that journey, it just adds to the depth of how you write. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great summation. I really appreciate that because it is what I like to try to do. And, as a memoirist, when you write memoir, you are sharing your own story to illuminate what that is like for other people, either who are living similar stories or who have never going to live a story like yours, but they're nonetheless, want to find out what it's like. But then because these things are so, that we're doing, that I'm facing with autism and that our community is, there's so much information. And in my past career, I did deal with information and translating that to audiences that didn't have time to read a big, thick thing on, an aircraft or a weapon system or whatever, a policy that I used to do when I worked at the Pentagon. But, you can distill that into little nuggets. So I guess I got that skill, and I just want to, I like to dig into information and shake it and see what the big picture is for that information. We don't need to know tiny, tiny details of everything. We need to process that and figure out what that means. So I'm doing that, for you, hopefully.
Well, it's amazing.
Yes, it is. It's very moving, and you feel like you're there alongside you in your journey. So you told us you met your first camel. What happened after that?
Well, I looked at that camel and I said, hey, well, I'm really, really bored, and my son is reading books. He's fine. He's age 7 at that time. And so I was about also to become a single mom, and that was a very precarious, scary time because, that's what you're afraid of as a mom, being alone with your child and not having the help that you need for both of you to sometimes actually just survive. So I just saw that.
Oh, we have a little Skype. There we go.
Took a look at it, and I saw a guy that had soap and lotion that he was selling from camel milk, and I said, well, what else did they do with that milk? And I probably should have never asked that, but that's what I get for being nosy. Curiosity killed the camel, as they say. So he said that it was given to premature infants in hospitals in the Middle East, and it was thought to be non-allergenic and might be close to human breast milk. And boom, that was when I had my light bulb moment, and I thought this milk might help my son's autism symptoms, and B, might also be a great dairy substitute for people like him that can't have other milks. For him, dairy from a cow and goat didn't work either, would make him hand flap and toe walk, and he literally said it feels like there's dirt in my brain once he got good enough at speaking to say that. And so all the other milks too, those vegan milks, would all set off allergies. And so we were down to potato milk. And so I was still always wanting an animal milk because that helps build bone strength better, which now is actually borne out by a study. So boom, I have to stick my nose into that world, and I just became obsessed, and it's been a 14-year rabbit hole journey, and that has led me from America to other countries, and I've met the most amazing people in this journey, and I'm just so lucky that they wanted me to, share their culture and their value, love their healing traditions with the world. And so, yeah, let's go on a journey because, we have a lot on our plates as parents, but we still want to learn and we have value to the world ourselves. I think sometimes we forget that. I mean, I used to think I didn't matter at all. Everything was about my son and getting him better and getting him progress and getting him where he could be. And if he wasn't going to make progress, that's how it is. You just have to make them happy and successful as they can be. So I didn't matter for years. So I felt like finally, I want to at least have a life a little bit of my own. And so that really helped, when you're trying to help others, and if you can find something in that for yourself too, and to still create a community that you can be part of and other people can be part of. That's what I feel like I've done with these 2 books, and I'm really appreciative that I've been welcomed by a lot of people.
It makes me emotional because to hear you say that you didn't feel like you mattered, and yet your book changed my life. And like forever, it changed my life. The first one and the second one as well. I just think it's a lesson for all of us about, that you are somebody who follows your passions and follows your instincts. And I learn from that all the time, quite frankly, Christina, that, because I don't think there are very many moms who would have been at the bookstore and been like, been at the book fair and been like, oh, there's a camel, so I guess I'm going to die. Like, we might have Googled it.
Right.
But the rest of us would not end up, in a tent with
Bedouins, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I did Google it. There was zero. So, leave it to me to have to create my own, support my own scientific theory. So whatever, it just happens, but
you're an adventurous soul, though.
Well,
tell us what actually happened once you discovered the camel milk with your son and with others on the spectrum. What effect did the camel milk have?
Well, it had, for my son, he was sort of, I like to say he's almost like patient zero in some ways. Now, I did have that idea. I went home, there was nothing on the internet about autism or anything, just weird articles about making cheese and how hard it was and stuff. And so I didn't give up, though. So I kept researching, and then a few months later, I found that there was an article by Dr. Ruben Yagil and another doctor, medical science professional, and they had given camel milk to some kids with autism in Israel, and they got better. So it was kind of a short-term article, but that just showed me I was on the right path. So that's when I had to kind of smuggle it in with, medical support from Bedouins in the Israel, Palestine area of the Middle East. And I gave it to my son, and he got incredibly better overnight, like shocking, on 4 ounces of camel milk. So after that, it just threw me, into this whole investigation mode, which I went into before I gave it to him. So I'd done my due diligence as far as science went, kind of made the theory on why it might help. It worked beyond my wildest dreams. So after that, I just became a camel milk investigator. But in 2012, I wrote an article called Got Camel Milk, and it went viral, and it just really helped kick off the whole movement and industry around the world. So in 2013, I wrote a science article, which I've talked about before on Autism Live. That's now been cited maybe about 13 times. So that kind of got a lot of citations, as we know now. And now thousands and thousands and thousands of kids and adults with various medical conditions are using camel milk. And so it's amazing. It's global around the world. In America, the thing where my son is kind of patient zero, I did get milk in America when they started milking camels around 2011. And I gave it to him, and he showed the same response as he did from the Middle Eastern camel milk. So that showed, like, he was probably the first person to do that with autism. It showed that it wasn't just like the milk from this one country or the breed of camel from this one country. It was the camel itself in 2 different environments had the same effect. So that was what was the confirming thing that I needed to do to kind of go public and help drive this forward.
But just for the viewers at home, you do, they really need to read the book, because you do talk a little bit in the book about how there's a certain amount that's the right amount, and too much is not a good thing. This is not a, drown in camel milk sort of thing, correct?
Well, I would say you should bathe in it like Cleopatra if you get the chance, because it's excellent for skin. But as far as drowning in it, no. So no, I do answer all the questions because I know what people want, because I hear from hundreds and hundreds of people all the time. So I wrote the story, and there's incredible people in it, incredible photos in it. So I'd love people to enjoy that. But in the back is a user's guide, and so it's got where do I get it, a complete global source list of where to order. It has all the health conditions that it helps for. I mean, there are more, but I included the basics, which is autism, diabetes type 1 and 2, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, between rounds of chemotherapy, food allergies, gut disorders. There's all kinds of things that it works for. So I do have a chart in the back on how much suggested serving amounts are for each disorder. And then also ways to use it. How do I thaw it out? Like, just for fun here, I'm thawing out my camel milk right now. So you can just take a frozen bottle and set it in cool water. to kind of chill. And then one of the readers in another country said, hey, I read your book and then I saw the actual camel milk you described. So I was glad that my description of this camel milk actually rang true when she saw it in the store. So you can get it all kinds of places now. You can get it on the internet, you can get it everywhere. But I have lists in the back, so it's easy. Like, I've got everything in Camel Crazy that you pretty much want to know about this topic.
Okay, how does it taste, Christina?
That's the number one question, and the number one answer is, after people drink it, is, oh, it just tastes like milk.
Okay. It's a little creamier, though, I think, isn't it? Or is that just me?
Well, it's all kind of different. So I, just showed you the raw, fresh milk, from the camel. You can get it, and that is like, to me, when you get just like a nice clean batch that's so perfect, and it's just like that, it just tastes like any milk, basically. Only I feel that it's a little more similar to cow than goat in taste. But then if you get powder, or other kinds, it tastes a little bit different. If you get from different farms, it can taste different. I say it's kind of like a fine cheese. You know how they differ from each other? They're all cheese, but some taste a little bit different.
Amazing. So where all can we get the book?
Well, the book is available anywhere you can get books. So, of course, Barnes & Noble, any other bookstore, independent bookstores, which I love. Independent bookstores have been great at featuring it. And go to any store, either they will have it or they can order it for you. Also, Amazon.com in any country where it operates can get it to you. Let's see, if you want a signed copy, write to me and I can send you a book plate or a signed copy. And then, of course, for our international buyers, it's bookdepository.com. But if you go on my website, ChristinaAdamsAuthor.com, all the places, you just have to push a button, it'll tell you where your independent bookstore is, or your Amazon, or whatever you want to do. So
wonderful. We highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. And also your first book, A Real Boy. Read them.
Absolutely.
If you haven't read that, you can read the two of these books. They go together and document Christina's journey.
Amazing, amazing.
Thank
so we
you.
want to take a little bit of a break, but then if you still have time, we'd like to come back. There was a story that you brought to our attention yesterday that we'd like to have you talk to our viewers about. Do you have time?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we'll be
We're going to
back
take a break and we'll be right back.
And we're back with Christina Adams, author of A Real Boy and Camel Crazy, and we've been hearing about her journey in the world of autism, and now she has another story that she wants to talk to us about. Thanks for coming back, Christina.
Over the years, Christina has shared with us sometimes, I mean, you're a wonderful advocate for the autism community, and there are different things that come up that you're a leader, and you say, look, this is wrong, and maybe we want to do something about it, and a lot of people listen to you. So you talked to me yesterday about a story. Tell the folks at home about this story.
I just saw this little news item yesterday, and it looks like it took place in Metairie, Louisiana. Not that I'm saying that correctly, but this 16-year-old boy, he was severely autistic. He likes to visit this place where they do games and things like that. And he and his father were regular visitors there. They felt welcome there. And so you know how that is when you find a place where that kind of child is welcomed and everybody understands him and cares for him. I mean, that's a rare thing, and that's wonderful. But the child was pretty severely affected by autism. He's a big child too, 16, very large from the video they showed on the news. And so he was having, I guess, a temper tantrum, an outburst. And he was slapping his father. They were out in the parking lot, and he was slapping his father on the head based on what the clip showed that was taken by a bystander. And so the father, was trying to protect himself, but the boy was slapping him really hard on the head. But police were called, and anyway, the policeman ended up taking him down to the ground, the boy, and then you can kind of see where they get on top of him. He's face down, and he's a very full-chested guy. The child is, and then the policeman looks pretty large too, and he had vests on and stuff, so they're on top of him. The kid's face is down on the ground, and it looks like they also do something really hard to the back of the kid's head. I can't see what they did actually, but it looked very hard. And then there was another officer there. So anyway, the child was then taken away, and he's dead.
Yeah,
he's dead.
It's, right now, then they even said yesterday that the police wouldn't make a statement to the local media until the autopsy report came back. but that child is dead. And so now we have a situation where, it's just a big ball. So it's very hard to get funding for an aide to come with a family, to be with a child like that all the time.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen all the time unless you really make it happen. I do know young adult men in California or teenagers where they do have to have like 2 male aides with them all the time. So it does happen, but it's impossibly difficult to do that in most places. I don't know if this family ever even asked for it. But second of all, you don't have that because of the funding situation or what have you. And then, you get the police come. Not only do they take this child's life, probably, look, they say there's an underlying medical condition, but a lot of our people with autism have underlying medical conditions. Getting them down on the ground, doing whatever that was and sitting on them like that, it seems like there could be a better way. We know that there are de-escalation techniques that you can use with people with autism and mental illness. It's just that they aren't deployed very often. So I don't believe that had to happen. And now we're probably going to have a lawsuit, probably going to have, a big settlement for the loss of this child's life. And all that money could have been used in a positive way. We just traditionally don't do things proactively in this country, or probably a lot of countries, it's limited what they'll do proactively. But I just feel it's like a terrible thing. Like also out here near me in California, I think he had autism, developmentally disabled young man with his parents in a Costco. And there's dispute about what happened, but a police officer shot him. And it wasn't even a police officer that was on duty at that location. And he's dead. So, and the parents were yelling, don't, what do we have to do to save our young people with autism from this kind of force? And I respect the police force tremendously. This is not a negative on them. I'm sure they feel very stressed by being in this situation. So I'd love to see more support for them, but also it's got to be on the developmental disability support side. When parents say they need help, they need to be given help. That way everybody could be safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see a lot of these cases, unfortunately, and it just points out the need for police officers to be trained, to have sensitivity training to this, because they oftentimes don't know the signs and react not in the correct way in dealing with somebody with autism.
Yeah, a lot of them are terrific too. They really want to. I was at a police event in Huntington Beach a couple years ago, and they had some training recently. They were at an Autism Awareness event, and they were just terrific. So it can be done. And there's also a specialist, his name is Dennis DeBott, and he does go around and train police departments, and he is the father of a son with autism. So there is precedent. It can happen.
We've had him on the show.
And we've had Emily Island on the show.
Emily Island has a program with her son, Tom Island. They have a program. There are programs. The issue that I hear from Emily is that a lot of times, first of all, there's you first have to get the police department to see that it's something that would be worthwhile and would, that the time and the energy will save them money, right? Because that's always a hard thing to take people off the jobs that they're doing and say, we're putting you in a classroom for the day that it's worthwhile, but that seems to be doable, that they can get them to do that. But there's a high rate of turnover in police departments. They transfer, they move, they leave the job, whatever. And so getting police departments to do it on a regular basis is like the new hard thing. So I think that what solves that is community pressure. I think that, having a relationship with your police department is important. When Jem was growing up, we lived in the same community as Emily Island, so all of the work had been done for me. So please know that I'm speaking from a position of having lucked out. But Emily had worked with her local police department and had events and things like that. But I remember a time when they wanted me to teach my son at CARD. They wanted him to learn the lessons of different like what are first responders. And they suggested that I call my local police department and fire department and ask, can we come over for a tour? And they were thrilled to. Do I think part of that is because Emily Island had done legwork first? Yes. But I think that if she could do it, we could all do it, right? And starting that relationship with your police department so that then they know you and you can make recommendations and say, when are you having an event? But start with your kid. I think it's helpful, and
And honestly, it's heartbreaking to me because while I do feel that there are some people on the police force who should not be on the police force, I think we can all agree on that. I think that a lot of people, their intentions are good.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, if I thought that the intentions of those police officers walking up to that young man hitting his dad, if their intention was to kill him, I'd have to go to bed forever. I couldn't get up, right?
I'm sure it wasn't their intention.
I don't think it was their intention. But what they don't know is that you and I, if we were forced to the ground, it would be hard for us to breathe, but we would know behavior to do to make it so that we could breathe. And what we see is that people with Down syndrome and autism often are barrel-chested. You put them face down and they don't know how to help themselves, and they asphyxiate without being hit. And there was the case of the young man outside the movie theater with Down syndrome that this happened to as well. And I think that somebody at the very least has to educate the police about some people don't know the behavior of turning your head to the side.
Yeah, because unfortunately these are not isolated incidences. They seem to crop up every so often.
And that's right. And this will probably haunt those police officers.
Yeah, I think, as you said, the police officers are well-intentioned. They just don't have the training and they don't understand.
Well,
it's traumatic for them too. And I will note, of course, people of color have been dealing with this for a long time. And when you take a person of color who also has a developmental disability, I mean, the risk rate is, risk goes up even more. So there are a lot of issues that we would all love to see addressed. And I'm sure that the police forces would like to see this addressed too.
Yeah. But I think it's driven by parents. And
everything is, right?
Right?
Yes.
Everything.
And I love that you said, let's speak out about this today, because I think it's important that we do. And both of you have series on Autism Live that are about empowering parents. And I know that that's something that both of you feel very strongly about, as do I. And so we want to empower those of you who are watching. Don't sit by and wait. Do something to help start with your child, to help your child to know how to behave. You can do Be Safe the movie, which is Emily Island's thing, and start with just your child, which teaches them how to behave when they're around the police. Talk to your police department. We need to make more happen.
Well, when my son was young, and he always nice kid and everything like that, but sometimes I just was always worried, like, what if he did something impulsive or he got caught with a couple friends doing something. So I always told him, A, immediately do what the police officer says right away, but B, tell them that you want an attorney and to call your mom.
There you go. That's funny. I always told Jen to say, my mom has an attorney.
Okay, good. Good thought. Okay.
But that wasn't for police. That was like at school.
Right.
My mom has a lawyer, is what I told him to say. My mom has a lawyer. And he, that was one of the first phrases we drilled.
Really?
My mom has a lawyer.
That's a good one.
Well, there was stuff.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Not what you want to raise your child to say, right? But yeah. Love that. Well, Christina, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I know you've been on like the media tour of all time, shaking it up, and it's definitely, I'm glad that you are, because people need to know about this book, Camel
So go
Crazy.
out and get Camel Crazy.
Yes.
You'll go crazy for it.
You will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you,
All
Christina.
Right, you take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we're just about out of time.
Yes.
But thrilled that my friend is back here. And
it's good to be back here with you.
We're going to be back next week. I'm supposed to read what's happening next week, but I have no idea what I did with it. I've given it away to the wolves. What did I do with it? I just always, it's like every week, every show, this happens to me. Okay, on Monday, all right, you ready for this? We have special education attorney Bonnie Yates is with us, and Paul Worthington from Linda Mood Bell Learning Processes.
Wyatt went through that.
And he's the head of research and development, and they've been doing some really interesting things, especially for those of you who are interested in knowing about if your child has a language processing disorder. They've been doing a lot with that, and with reading comprehension, which a lot of us are concerned about. So that will be on Monday. On Tuesday, we have a best of. On Wednesday, we have Dr. Doreen Grandpichet with us in the studio. And I know I've said that to you before, but I'm told that hard and fast we have her next Wednesday, and I'm really excited about that. We're going to keep you posted about who we have on Thursday, because I don't have it here. And on next week on Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we have one of our guests is going to be Leah Hirschfeld is going to be with us again. again. She fills us in on research, and she's got some really interesting research to help us to understand. So, and then we will have another guest. I just don't know who it is yet. So all of that and more coming up next week. Have a great weekend. Until we see you next week, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now. Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So thrilled to be here with you on this wonderful Monday morning. We've got a great show for you. Traven's showing you some of the different ways that, or he's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect with us here at the show. I want to remind you while he does that, our homepage is autism-live.com. Lots to do on that page, not the least of which is chat with us. At the very bottom of the page, there's a little chat button. Click on that. It opens up a box. You can type and hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen. You can talk to me. You can talk to our guests and our experts. So we really enjoy it when you write into us. Hey, I mentioned that we have experts on the show, and that's one of the things that I'm proudest of in the show, because we want you to get the information that you need. But please don't be mistaken. We have lots of experts on the show. I'm not one of them. I am an autism mom and a former teacher. And I'm a proud autism mom, right? Thrilled to be here with you to help you, to connect you to the resources that you need. We always say here that we're about information and inspiration. That's the goal here. If we can help you, and if I can, if we together, collectively, our team can help you to be able to chase down the resource that you need, man, that makes my day. We want to be able to save you time and money whenever possible. And we want you to be here and feel like you're home with us, because we are a big, beautiful community. And I always say that this show serves the greater autism community, the bigger autism community. Of course, that starts with individuals who are on the spectrum themselves. Of course, that starts with them. But then beyond that, it goes to everybody who cares about them. We include you in this community because we're not going to agree on everything, but we will agree on the one thing that we all have in common, that we believe that individuals on the spectrum have dignity and deserve respect and deserve to have the support and resources that they need to do the things that they want to do in their life, right? Is there anybody out there that does? If you don't agree with that, write into me, and expand my mind. Tell me what's happening. But if we can get together on those things, then I believe that we can do something good every single day, and that makes me happy. All right. On Mondays, we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are the experts talking about, and what does it have to do with me. We give you the actual definition whenever possible. I try to make fun of it because that's how I find my joy. And then we give you a working definition, which often makes the experts crazy. I take joy in that as well. But hopefully it helps us to be able to understand what's happening so that we can use this term in a way that gets us further down the road, right? That's really what it's all about. So today's phrase, it's right there for you, token economy. Doesn't that sound like something we'd hear about from the politicians that doesn't sound particularly good? No. This is the problem with some of this jargon, is that it sounds like something it isn't. So let's take a look at our actual definition of token economy. Token economy, earning generalized and conditioned reinforcers as an immediate consequence for specific behaviors, then exchange them for backup reinforcers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. It's so convoluted that unless you have a degree in psychology, what does that even mean? Earning generalized condition reinforcers? Hey, folks, if I don't know what a token economy is, I sure don't know what that is, right? Let's throw that away for a moment. We'll come back to that later. And let's take a look at our actual definition and see if we can't make heads or tails of this. Token economy, when a child, but it's really anybody, earns tokens, stickers, coins, or something else that is motivating so they can trade it for something else. So here's the thing. We know in the principles of behavior that if I say to you, do this and you get this reward, and you've tried it once and you've gotten it, and now you go, hey, I like the reward, this isn't that hard, I'm going to do it over and over and over again because I like the reward, right?
that's a method of teaching, and it's a lot better than, like twisting somebody's arm and saying, do that worksheet, right? It actually works. It's why we all have paychecks at our jobs, because it's a reinforcer, so we come back every day to work, right? But sometimes, like a paycheck, you don't get a paycheck every single minute for every single task that you do, right? You fill out a form that you have to do at work, and it's time intensive, and you fill out the report, and you turn it in, and you're like, where's my reward, right? Well, you know that your paycheck is going to come, and you know when your paycheck is going to come, but it's not coming till a week from Friday. So why do you keep doing it? Because you know that it's coming. You absolutely know that it's coming. For a child, that's a little bit, it's like hard to remember. Am I gonna get paid for that? I don't know. So what we do is we give them, it's called the token economy. And basically what it is it gives immediate reinforcer to say, good job, good job, good job. And each, good job comes with a sticker that goes on a chart. And if you get enough of them, you get the break. Or it can be that, for every one that you get something when you go home. Token economies are really good when you're not in the place where you can give the thing that's going to reinforce the behavior. So, for instance, in a classroom, the kid's sitting in the desk and the teacher wants him to do the good work, but she can't, if he does do the good work, she can't stop everything and give him his food reinforcer then, or she can't, whatever the thing is that's reinforcing to that kid, because she's got to keep teaching, right? So instead, she'll say good job and praise, and she walks over and puts the gold star there. And Bobby knows if I get 10 gold stars, I get to have X, Y, and Z when I get home. Or for every gold star, when he gets home, he gets 10 minutes worth of playing his game, right? So Bobby goes, cha-ching, I got a gold star, because he knows it's going to translate into something that's a paycheck later on. That's really a token economy. How about as a parent, when you go into the grocery store and you really want to see good behavior in the grocery store and you don't want to go through the meltdown when they get to the checkout, right? Now, you could at them. How effective is that? That doesn't work at all, right? Or you can get out your phone and download an app that has a token economy on it, and you say, okay, so we're going to go in the store, and I want to see really good behavior, and, as long as you can keep these 3 tokens here, when we leave, then you're going to get whatever, right? Whatever it is that the child is really going to be reinforced, because it can work positive or negative. You've got the 3 tokens, don't lose them, and you lose tokens for whining or tantruming or whatever you define it with the child, right? We have a video of where we went to the LA Zoo, and I didn't have time to bring a token economy with me, and my kid was a little bit older, and I was going to be holding a microphone and interviewing all these people, and I wanted him to be on his best behavior. And so I went to a BCBA, and I was like, what kind of a token economy can I do when I'm not holding anything else and I can't have my phone with me? And she said, can you keep a pen? And I said, yes, I can put a pen in my back pocket, but I got to be able to hold the microphone. And she said, okay, so you say to him, I'm going to make a mark every time on my hand that you do something really remarkable. And if we get to 30, we're going to In-N-Out Burger afterwards. This is a big deal here in California. And he was on it, and he was like, I'm going to get 30. I'm getting In-N-Out. And every time I would, he got that reinforcer, because I'm interviewing somebody, but I would just, on my hand, and I'd be like, dude, and he'd be like, ooh, okay, I'm getting another one, right? And he was looking for ways that he could be stellar. Isn't that what we all want for our kids? Token economy. I'm telling you, it works in lots of different circumstances in lots of different ways. But it's a way of giving the reinforcer that is just something little, so that they know that they're getting a paycheck down the road. Use your token economy. Think, how can I do that in a situation that's making it hard? And I'm telling you, it's a good thing. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day. Our question today, see, I'm excited because we got amazing guests today. Our question today is, who do you go to for advice? Who are the people that you listen to? Who are the people that you run to when you're not sure? Because let me just tell you something. When your child is diagnosed with autism, it's going to change. It's going to change. And I think it's really important that we notice, because a lot of times people have this frustration in the beginning. You go to your best girlfriend, and you go to your mom, and you go, I don't know what to do, my child was just diagnosed with autism. They're telling me he needs 40 hours of therapy. And what's the first thing that they're going to say? What? I mean, this is the first thing I said when my child was diagnosed. 40 hours of therapy for a 3-year-old? Are you out of your mind? That's a full-time job. There's no way. He needs a nap. That can't happen, right? And I said that, and then when my friend said it and my mom said it, I was like, right, okay, we have agreement. The three of us, the people who I respect, we agree that that's full-on crazy. Except it's not. And we're not experts in, none of the three of us were experts in ABA or autism, and none of us had met an individual with autism who was working a job, right? And what my husband and I found was, I was just telling this story to somebody yesterday on the phone, that early on, and we were like, on this 40-hour thing, but we'd heard from one parent whose kid was doing amazing. You better pay attention to that. We were like, oh, okay, because your kid's pretty fabulous, so I think we got to pay attention. But then Bonnie Yates, the amazing Bonnie Yates, I didn't even know her then, but she invited, everybody in the Los Angeles area. She was having an event where she had a panel of, I think it was 10 or 12 parents whose kids were all doing really well. And they would speak about what they had done, and then you could ask them questions afterward. And I listened to those 10 people, and they were like, we did ABA, and we did it intensively. And by the way, we made sure our child got healthy, and my child needed this, and my child, and they were all different, but the thing in common, we did intensive ABA. And this is which college my child's going to now. And my husband and I, we had our kid in the little umbrella stroller. That's how little he was. And we looked at each other and we were like, okay, we're on that, right? And we started asking advice of those people, because I love my mother, still love her. My mother's no longer with us, but she did not have a basis to give me advice on this, right? Nor did my best friend. You got to be careful who's telling you what, because if they don't know, and then they'll feel bad later on, and you'll feel bad. Why was I listening to you? You're not an expert in that. You've never experienced that. So why was I asking you? Because you're close friends, which brings me to my next thing, which is what our topic is this week. And that is, I didn't really give Traven any kind of thing, but our topic this week is your inner circle. Who is in your inner circle? And I'm going to tell you this, your inner circle is going to change. It doesn't mean it's going to change permanently, but it might. But the people that you let in and go, this is what's happening and I don't know what to do yet, is likely going to change once you get an autism diagnosis. It doesn't mean you have to kick everybody out, right? But I had the litmus test. Are you helping us to get where we need to be, or are you some way hindering us? And man, for the people who were hindering us, I was like, lights on, nobody home. I didn't even bother going, hey, I'm excommunicating you from our lives, because I didn't think I was. I just was like, I have no time for that. If you're getting in the way of what we need to do to help our son, I'm not even going to address it. I'm just going to go over here. And there were a lot of people in our lives that were not happy about that. You know what? I stand by it. My kid's doing well. You got to be with people who are going to get behind what you're doing and support you, and that have an understanding and want to learn, or you have to ask them to step to the side. This is too hard, and there's too much at stake. If you're trying to truly, truly help yourself and help your child, you can't have naysayers in the middle of your life, wacka, 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 wacka in your ear. I said to my mother, I either need your support or your silence. Please pick. And she was ticked by that. She was like, what? And I said, Mom, that's all I have the bandwidth for. And it took her a little while, but she got on the support bandwagon, and that meant the world to me for the time that she was left on this planet, and we were closer for it, right? Don't be afraid to tell people, support or silence. There were other people that I did not invest in to even have that conversation. I just saw that there was no support, and I went over here. I'm not attending to this over here. I encourage you, it's very freeing, because you can't do the hard stuff if you're trying to carry people along and explaining to them endlessly. Explain once, twice, 3 times, but then it's like, no, if you're trying to harm what we're to harm, and you will see that people can, I don't have time, right? Choose your inner circle wisely, so that you've got more than one person. Okay? All right, we've got one of my inner circle is going to be with us today. Isn't that amazing? Coming up, for the first time, we're going to have Mirelle Beauchenu, let's hope I didn't slaughter that, clinical psychologist. We're talking internationally this morning with him. And then one of my inner circle, Joanne Lara, and John Brower, who I just barely have met from New Horizons. But Joanne Lara, you guys should know, she's from Autism Works Now, Autism Movement Therapy, Glorious Pies, and one of my dearest friends. So, and I only met her 4 years ago, but she's part of my inner circle now. She's good people. All right, you guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back talking internationally with a clinical psychologist. Stick with us. Welcome back, you guys. We had promised you a clinical psychologist who was coming to us from Bucharest, Romania. And international Skype is not my friend today, nor is WhatsApp. We had a plan and we had a plan B, and both have failed. I just want to say that our guest was ready to go, and we really thank him, and our apologies to him that we're having to reschedule. And let me just say this, clinical psychologist from Bucharest, Romania, and he was going to talk to us about a wide variety of things, but he himself has developed an augmentative communication app that you can use to help nonverbal children or adults express their needs and learn to communicate. And the key differences from other apps is that it's very simple to use, very intuitive, affordable, fully customizable, and it has multilingual support. So the app is called Talk Wishes, and I believe that you can get that on Google Play and in the App Store. Please check it out, but we will have him back on the show on a different day, and our apologies to him that international Skype is not my friend today. All right, we're going to take another short break because we're going to welcome Joanne Lara and John Brower, who is coming to us from New Horizons. Joanne, of course, is coming to us from Autism Works Now, Autism Movement Therapy, and Glorious Pies. They're here, so they're going to be back with us in the studio in just a few minutes after this message. Stick with us. Welcome back to Autism Live. How lucky am I? I am joined live in the studio right now with one of our topics this week is Inner Circle, and I said that Joanne Lara is very much a part of my Inner Circle. She's joining us. You guys know her. She's a semi-regular on the show from Autism Works Now, Autism Movement Therapy, and Glorious Pies, but she's brought a friend, a remarkable friend. John Brower is joining us from New Horizons, and welcome to the show for the first time.
Thank you so much.
How about if we start with what is New Horizons and what happens there? And what do you do there?
People still wonder what I do there.
Okay, all right, let's clarify.
Right, exactly. So I've been there for about 2 years, and so New Horizons is a nonprofit organization serving about 1,500 individuals with ID and DD, primarily is our target population per year. But it's also, we've got a much broader spectrum than that, and part of what we're hoping to do over the years to come is to broaden that even more, to include more folks on the autism spectrum.
Wonderful.
But we serve, we have a community day program that has about 300 people in it, and those folks are primarily in the community. It's volunteer jobs, it's taking knitting classes, it's everything you can think of that you would want to do in your life. And then we have 13 group homes. So 6-unit group homes that are all spread out throughout the community. We have an employment services division that's huge. We have 400 people right now working in the community.
At Albertsons?
You name it, they're working there.
400 people working.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Getting a paycheck.
I know that gets you excited, Joanne.
It makes me so happy. It's fantastic.
Well, and in terms of kind of who we're serving, we're one of the largest providers, and our goal the next couple of years is to be the largest provider in California. There's no reason we can't double that number.
Love that.
We have so many people who want jobs, and we have so many employers that are looking for folks.
And if people are interested in knowing more, where should they go to find out more information, John?
Probably our website, which is www.newhorizons-sfv.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
The SFV standing for San
Fernando Valley. That's right.
Okay.
Although we do spread, we're now beyond some of that area, but that is the primary. Yeah.
Okay. And John, you said that you've been there for 2 years,
Right.
but you've had an illustrious career leading up to that prepared you for all that. Tell us a little bit about where you came from.
Okay. Well, it's kind of a crazy journey. So I owned a construction company for many years. Before that, I owned a dental lab. I worked in the food service industry actually during part of that as well. And eventually I decided what I was doing wasn't fulfilling. So I went back and got my master's degree. And part of when you get your clinical master's, at least at JFK University, is you do 2 9-month internships So I said, I will do anything, I will go anywhere as long as it's close to home, because I was commuting like a crazy man. I lived in the Bay Area. And so they found me a spot working with folks with disabilities, didn't know a thing about it.
The universe said, I have plans for you, John.
Honestly.
That's what happened.
And I even said in the interview, I said, you know, I really have not worked with somebody with a disability this way. Do you think I'm going to fit in? And they said, just try it. See what.
Yeah.
So they said, you won't be alone, we'll train you. The first day I showed up, no trainers were there. I was all on my own. I thought, what was I so worried about? This is great. This is awesome. So I came probably, and after the first 2 weeks, came home and told my wife, I found my calling. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate. I graduated, got my master's degree, and then was offered a job in San Francisco, starting a nonprofit from scratch, because they had a lot of people with disabilities that could get a job but couldn't keep a job. So their thing was, well, how are you going to do that? Help solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
So to do that, because I'm an entrepreneur, I love the whole business model and you know, try to take things apart and figure out how to make it work. We started 6 businesses that employed 300 people at any one time in the community. We delivered all the mail for the city and county of San Francisco. We had 2 retail stores. We had 2 cafes. We had a janitorial service that was in 4 counties. It was fabulous. It was everything an entrepreneur could dream of, and to see people really do well. And now, mind you, I'm an older guy, so this was a long time ago. This was almost 30 years ago.
Right. Who are you talking to here? Because Joanne and I are only 14 if you add us together.
Just in your prime. I see it. I see it.
So you see, Shannon.
There's a lot of snow on the roof.
You see,
well, that's the thing.
God brought us together.
Yeah, I mean, if you know Joanne and you know the topics that she comes in here and talks about, you know that this is all very exciting to her. Yeah. Your resume probably had the top of your head come off.
I mean, just the fact that he did the Firefly Cafe and Catering.
Right.
If you look that up, you see that it is exactly the model that I want for Glorious Pies, which is front of the house, back of the house, taking the orders, serving the food, everything. And it's up and running for 5 years.
And what I love about Firefly was, it was the last project I started before I left Virginia. What I loved about it was, it wasn't a disability cafe. There was no signage. We just happened to have people with disabilities working there, and they worked every part of it. And the best part of it was, I'd really hoped that it would do well financially. It broke even at the 6-month mark, which for food service is crazy. Because we had so much support from the community. They wanted us to do well, which is great. I love that people got trained. I love that, you know, that it was real jobs and all that. My favorite part of this, though, is that people graduated. Let's say you're in dishwashing or food prep or whatever, cashiering, that the restaurants in our area said, we'll hire anybody that graduates. And so for a change, our clients had first right of refusal. They would go and say, I'm interviewing at 3 restaurants and I'm going to choose which one I want to work at. Now, when do our folks get that kind of, and they would say, well, this one's closer, this one pays a little bit more, I thought the manager was friendlier here, and that's how they would get their job. And so that's really then about creating something where it really is client choice then, right?
Wow. So we now have to bring it all together and talk about Joanne, but let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to see how this all fits together with the work that Joanne's been doing. You know, Joanne co-authored this amazing book, Teaching Pre-Employment Skills to 14 to 17-year-olds. And it's a little bit of a misnomer, because it's teaching pre-employment skills to anybody who needs to learn them, right? Which is everybody.
That's right.
Right? So, but the subtitle is The Autism Works Now Method. So we're going to come back and talk about how, I love how there's a little bit of green on your book, so can you see how the green screen cuts that out? Yes, I get distracted, squirrel. But we're going to come back and talk about how John and Joanne are now,
plotting.
They're plotting. Right. They're plotting, and we're excited about them plotting, because good things happen when good people plot. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us right now, Joanne Lara, who is co-author of this amazing book, Teaching Pre-Employment Skills to 14 to 17-year-olds. This is the Autism Works Now method. We were saying before, it's a misnomer. It's teaching pre-employment skills to anybody who needs to learn them at any age, wherever they are, of any ability.
Yes.
So Joanne is here. She is the founder of Autism Works Now.
and Autism Movement Therapy and Glorious Pies. You're such a slouch. You're not busy doing anything. And she brought to us today for the first time John Brower from New Horizons. We just heard from John a little bit about what New Horizons does and what his area of expertise, but many areas of expertise. And we were saying that probably that made your head explode because it's an arena of things that you're interested in. So tell us about how you and John are plotting.
Well, we've already plotted for one thing because Autism Works Now, the program is at New Horizons on Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30. It's the same program that's been up and running for 5 years, and we're still doing great. Now, those are the individuals who take the Autism Works Now program that are the employees for Glorious Pies, which is the catering company.
So they learn in this class and all the things that are in this book, they learn all those things, everything from how to set up an email account to how to apply for a job, how to dress, how to interview.
What do you do after you have the job? Big one. In fact, we had an individual who came, just have to tell a side story, last week. He goes out a lot, he interviews a lot, hasn't had any success in getting employment yet. And I said, well, are you remembering to send that thank you note?
Yeah.
No, I just thank them there. No. There is a protocol to getting a job.
Yeah.
These guys have missed the boat on it. Haven't gotten it in their public school system. You know how I'm going to get on the soapbox.
No.
They're not teaching it they're not teaching in the public school system. They're not teaching in the transition programs. They're not, they're goodbye. Don't let the door hit you, and good luck with that job.
Yeah.
And don't have an email.
Yeah.
Can't have a job without an email. Come on. Don't have an email. Don't know Google Docs. Everyone uses Google Docs. That's like the platform.
I sort of need to take this class.
Yeah, you need to.
I'm just saying. I don't need a job, but I sort of need to take this class. I mean, look, I know people who've taken their kids there to take the class, and they find themselves going, anybody have a pen? I'd like to write this down.
They take notes.
That's
awesome.
Exactly. And can I just say that the field trips that you guys go on,
No,
you should charge a ticket price for people to come along with, because you went to YouTube a couple of weeks ago.
And Google on the 27th.
And I was like, well, how do I get to go on that field trip? Thank you very much.
And it was fantastic.
So you go some pretty impressive places. Let's just say.
We do,
it's
in
like
5 years,
It's the hit parade of where you'd want to go.
Yeah.
So all of this that they get, if they're taking the class locally.
Right.
But we should say that you are prepared, and your co-authors, Susan Osborne, you guys are prepared that if there's a place that wants to bring it, they can write to you, and you will train them in it, and then they can run their program.
One day, 5 hour.
Pittsburgh, you want it, you can have it. They'll come, they'll train you, then you run it.
We did it in Boston, Seattle, and here, and we've been very successful.
Yeah.
So if you do want to have the program, replicate the program, and you're a nonprofit, you don't have to be a nonprofit, but most of well, they've all been nonprofits that have asked us to come and do our 5-hour Autism Works Now training. We'll help you replicate the program, and we'll also stand by you and help you with some kind of an employment that you want to be a sister employment with it.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to do catering.
Because that's what you discovered, is that they were ready, but that then you were hoping people would take them for internships, and we found, because I was there with you alongside you on a couple of these things, we found that some of the people are talking out of both sides of their face and saying, we hire people, and then they don't.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Should I
they
name them?
Well, no. Let's try to play nice. Let's try to play nice. Because I'm still trying to get them to,
I know. You're right.
But so you said, rather than keep fighting City Hall, so to speak, that you were just going to take matters into your own hand, and you were going to start a business
2 years
that
ago.
would be the interim place, like what you did with the Fireflies, so that then they would be ready for the job someplace else. So you started Glorious Pies.
Right. So saying it's not the last job you have, it's the first job you have.
That's right.
For most of our individuals, the first job with a paycheck, with a 1099, with a W-2, a real, open the bank account, have the ATM card. That's what we're teaching. That skill set.
And
can we talk about the first Colin when, I got I don't know if I told you, but one of our Autism Works Now candidates, beginning of the Glorious Pies, paychecks went out. I'm like, Colin hasn't cashed his paycheck yet. You know, what's going on with that? Because almost everybody else had run to the bank, right?
They were so excited.
Excited.
I mean,
Getting,
come on.
because they're holding it. And my ADP payroll even said to me, because they're on payroll, listen, it'd be a little cheaper for you if we just did direct deposit.
Right. No, you
I
wanted
want
them
it
to
in
feel
the mail,
it. Yeah.
they get it, sign the back, take it there. I want them to understand the process of a paycheck.
Yeah.
Don't want a direct deposit. Their money's been being direct deposited since they were 3 years old.
Yeah, and they got to feel the transaction connected.
And they have no concept of employment because of that.
Yeah.
So, Colin, well, I got a piece of paper from you. Says Glorious Pies on it. I said, Colin, that's your paycheck.
Yeah.
Never seen a paycheck. 26 years old.
Bless his heart. But I have seen the growth of so many of your...
Now he's like, when are we working?
Right, yeah.
When's the next job? Because he wants to buy something and he gets the connection
he gets the connection, absolutely. So now, what's happening? What are you plotting, the two of you? What are you working on?
Well, I kind of think of it as we're dating. So we expect to walk down the aisle together, but at this point, we're trying to figure out where the connections are, and quite frankly, to have Joanne as somebody who would be a leader to come in and work with us as we're trying to expand into this population. Again, I think we're doing so well in employment. Can't we just use this overlay to work with the folks she's already working with? It makes perfect sense. We've got a space. She's got an expertise. I just think this is it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. This is a beautiful relationship. We hope it comes to fruition and you have babies. Let's say
right.
that.
That's right.
Right. That you have lots and lots of babies.
That's right.
Because we've seen it time and time again that the autism community. We all say we want to rah-rah each other, but a lot of times people are working in their own lane where when we can really work together collaboratively, that's when things go poof. So I applaud the two of you that you're even looking at that and seeing what benefits. But I love that now your program is being taught there at New Horizons. What a wonderful thing that is. And we're going to look forward. Now, you've got an event coming up, though, correct?
We do. So May 2nd is our big gala. It's the part of what we love about some of the fundraising events we do is that the money's not tied to things. And what I love about money that isn't tied to things is that a lot of times it'll say, well, you can do this with these 3 people, but not 4 and 5. If you're going to do individualized services, you have to take that veil off. And so fundraising, so in this event, this is our gala, it brings in several $100,000 and allows us the flexibility. It all goes directly back to the clients.
Wonderful.
And it allows us then to have that flexibility and say, okay, so let's say Department of Rehab will give you 6 weeks of, I'm making this up, but 6 weeks of employment services, job coaching, and we think you need 20 weeks. Then you get 20 weeks.
Wow.
If that's what it's going to take to get you to keep the job and feel like this is your place, that's what we do.
Okay, so what is the fundraiser?
So it's a gala event. It's at the Avalon. It's going to be so much fun. I can't tell you all the details yet because we're working on a couple of really fun perks.
With a big celebrity.
Yeah, I can't say who yet, but
big celebrity.
But lots of fun things. And I tell you, it's heartwarming because you get to meet some of the clients, hear their stories. It's a love-in is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
at the Avalon.
At the Avalon. Now you said everybody knows the
I
Avalon.
love the
I
Avalon.
don't know the Avalon.
Well,
so
I've been in Hollywood 35 years and used to live in Hollywood, and that's where all the rock and rollers used to play.
Okay.
So we used to beat a fast path to the Avalon, and it's a beautiful old, I think, vaudevillian theater.
Okay,
it's
cool.
so gorgeous. You've been in.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's absolutely it's
All
fantastic.
right, where do we get tickets?
So you can go on our website. You can give us a call. You can stop by the office. Come. If you want to find me, I will get you a ticket.
Okay. Tell them what the website is again.
Okay, so www.newhorizons-sfv for San Fernando Valley.org.
Okay.
And it's all up there. And you can also, we didn't get to any of the programs, and we have some pretty amazing new things happening that I would love for people to take a look at. We have a program, for example, I'll just tell you the short version, which is called Go Grocery. We've built a mock grocery store on our site. It's a partnership with Albertsons and Vons and Safeway, and everybody who graduates will work for one of the stores, 25 stores in our area, and it's working great. So there's just so many great things happening. I would love for folks to come on campus, come take a tour. At one point, we have a 7-acre campus. It was just filled with people. All those folks are in the community now.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reinvent ourselves and have partners like Joanne.
That's a pretty fabulous thing. And Joanne's a fabulous partner to
Absolutely.
have. Joanne, we didn't talk about where can you get the book?
On our website, which is www.autismmovementtherapy.org is my store.
Okay.
But you can also go to autismworksnow.org.
You can get to it all in either place. Autismworksnow.org or autismmovementtherapy.org.
It's also on Amazon. It's
There we go.
it's a Jessica
It's
Kingsley book, so it's
everywhere
in their
you
catalog.
can get books.
Yeah.
So a pretty fabulous thing. And I just want to point out, because we've had you on the show before to talk about this, but if
Yeah.
somebody's watching for the first time, all the worksheets, all the forms,
100 worksheets
all
that
the
can be
things
reproduced.
that you know, it's all here for you.
There's a website there that you go to, and you can, if you're a teacher or someone that's conducting the program in your community, and you can download all the materials you need for that lesson. There's 36 lessons.
Yeah, so it's really all here.
Yeah.
This is the
A lot of thinking,
curriculum to be able to teach this. An enterprising person could take this and do this with their kiddo.
That's right.
But even better to do it with a group of people, because I think they learn from each other. You've really got this down pat.
The
you and
friends
Susan.
that these individuals have made over the course of the 5 years, they now go outside of our course and meet and go for dinners and go to the mall and go, you know, they're friends.
Yeah.
And
It's a
I
network.
always say it's all about the friendship.
It is. It is.
That should be number one for your child.
Yeah.
Does your child have friends?
Yes,
That's it.
Quality of life. And we should note, I don't think I've ever mentioned it before, but the foreword for this,
Temple, yeah.
Dr. Temple Grandin. That's, you know, no small thing.
Right.
Okay, and so while we're talking about this, is it too late for, if somebody has a candidate, because that's what you call your students, are candidates, because they're job candidates.
That's right.
Is it too late, because you've already started your semester, would they have to wait till
No, they can come in.
They
We
can
have
come in.
2 new candidates that are coming in. I have a new individual coming tonight.
Okay.
And we had a candidate last week who came.
Okay, so this actually happens on Thursday nights. So and it happens at the New Horizon
That's right.
facility.
The address
where?
is
15725 Parthenia
Okay,
in North Hills.
got it.
Yeah.
And so they would
Haskell
go
Cross Street, so Haskell,
Correct.
Parthenia.
Okay.
Right near the Budweiser.
See, this is why I have you. I need help.
Yeah. I have to break it down.
John, we all do. Every single
I'm
one of
breaking
us
it down.
do.
I want to make it easy for people to get there.
Awesome.
Right. So people can go to autismworksnow.org
Yes.
and get the phone number, or call you,
Call me,
you or write you to be able to register to do that.
Absolutely.
And can they come to just take one class
They
to
do.
see if?
I let everyone come and audit and just sit and, you know what? It's not for everyone.
Right.
It may not be for your child, but let them see. And I'm happy for anyone to come, and the parent can come and be part of it and watch. We typically don't have parents. It's not a model where the parent sits next to the child.
No.
I want to be very clear about
You drop
that.
them off and you go get your nails done, or
Yeah.
go see a movie, or
That's
whatever
right,
it
or
is
go
that
to
you
dinner.
do.
Yeah.
Although parents want to, because it's pretty informative.
It is
It's,
informative,
you know,
and I love that piece. And a lot of times the parents will go to the field trips with us too, because
Yes.
they love that.
Yeah.
And
well, they should. They're great field trips.
Right,
I'm telling
right.
you.
I wanna
you
go.
Should,
Right.
You
Right.
should sell a side ticket as a fundraiser.
I know, that'd be a good idea. We're going
Right?
to Google on the 27th. So
Stop.
we have YouTube and then Google. It's amazing. Yeah,
You
we
can't
bring
get into those
Sony and-
places.
I know.
I know. Stop. It's
Susan's
good.
fantastic with that.
Yeah, no, that's a really fabulous
She's
thing.
great.
So, and I also don't want to miss the opportunity to say, if you have an event that's coming up in the Los Angeles area, and you can travel a little outside of Los Angeles.
We do.
but not too
Glorious
far.
Pies.
Yeah. If you have an event that's coming up and you would be willing and would love to have the pie truck come, and they set up a tent and they sell pies. It's a wonderful way to say to the world, we're putting our efforts where our mouths are. It helps them to sustain themselves, gives them the work opportunity. You go to places all over, businesses all over, and it's a wonderful thing. Talk just for a minute about that.
Good.
before we're out of
So
time.
we had a wonderful organization, Guess, like as in Guess Jeans, said, we want you to come. I love this. And we're buying all the desserts for our employees. And all you're doing is serving them.
Yeah.
For $400.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big day for
Yeah,
Glorious
It's a
Pies.
nice check.
That was a nice
and a
check.
nice opportunity to work.
Autism Speaks, the same thing when they did their gala at the bowling. Please come, and we're buying all the desserts for everyone at the gala.
But
Another
you can
nice-
do it the other way too,
But you
where
can do
you
it the
bring
other
the
way.
truck and they pay individually.
That's what we're doing for Watt Plaza, and we'll be there on Valentine's Day from 11 to 2. We'll be at Fox Plaza, which is on the corner of the Fox lot. They love us. We're coming back there on Thursday the 13th from 11:30 to 2:30.
Okay.
And we're just selling. And everyone that works in these big, tall, high-rise buildings comes down and gets a dessert and coffee. And we love it.
It's a fabulous thing. And then last but not least, autism movement therapy, which this is something, how long have you been doing that?
11 years.
11 years.
Yeah.
If you have a kiddo of any age in the Los Angeles area, I think it's definitely something that you need to audit. I've seen Joanne's class. It's amazing. We talk on the show a lot about giving your kids an opportunity to do other things that are enrichment, right?
Yeah.
But there's also this thing that we talk about crossing the midline. There's nobody who understands more about how the brain works and how that translates for kiddos and adults and teens on the autism spectrum than this woman, right? And attaching it to the body and getting the body to talk to the brain. I've seen what she does in her class, and it's absolutely amazing. Can't say enough about how you should treat yourself and your child to go and do that. And the parent could do it with them.
Absolutely.
Although they could just drop off, or they can sit and watch.
Or they sit in the back.
It's a fabulous thing to watch. To watch her work is an amazing, life-changing thing. But that's you can only get Joanne if you're in the Los Angeles area, but you have people that you have certified to do this method around the world.
Yeah, over 1,000
around the
certified.
world. So if you look in your area for somebody who's doing autism movement therapy, and if you can't find it, talk to Joanne. If you want to get certified, the certifications, do you have another one?
London? March
yeah,
21 and 22.
If you can get to London,
London,
and there
March
are people in
21 and
London,
22.
right? Not to discount.
We already
right?
have a lot of people signed up.
Right.
Dubai in November, part of something called Bright Star Foundation. We're bringing a lot of the expressive arts over to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because they don't have it. And so I'm all hooked up with art therapist and music therapist and that kind of thing. And then New York City.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
be in New York City in September,
Okay,
27th and
you
28th.
just had one in LA like in November, right?
October.
Okay, but you'll keep us posted.
Typically
if you have
do one a year in LA now, one a year in New York, one in London, and somewhere in the Middle East or India once a year.
And it's basically a weekend, and then they get to leave being fully certified in the autism movement therapy. They don't have to have a dance background,
They
although
do
it
not
helps.
have to be ABT dancers, no.
Right, but it helps.
It's always beneficial, but I always say, look, if you've got the desire and the drive and you want to bring movement and music to kids with disabilities, sign yourself right up, because it's a 10-hour, 2-day commitment. They walk away with licensed music that I license for autism movement therapy.
Yeah.
And so they've got the music, they've got the curriculum for a 45-minute movement and music class for people with disabilities.
And it's amazing, you guys. It's just amazing. So definitely check out Joanne's book. You also have a book about autism movement therapy.
I do.
Yeah.
Autism movement therapy, waking up the brain.
So go to her website, autismmovementtherapy.org, and check out her store there to support her and what she's doing, and support yourself and the people in your life that you care about.
And I have my fingers crossed for a third children's book that's now in proposal at Future Horizons.
Do you sleep?
While you're resting, right? Yeah, right.
She's a slouch.
That's about bullying, though. It's for second grade.
What a wonderful thing.
And I'm so hoping they're going to publish it for me.
All right.
I've got my fingers crossed on that.
Pretty fabulous. I want to thank both of you for being here with
pleasure.
us. This has been really exciting, and we can't wait to see what you plot together. So come back and check in with us. We want to thank everybody for being here with us. Want to tell you about what's happening the rest of this week. Tomorrow, we're showing a best of Temple Grandin. It's really the best of all the interviews that we've done with Temple Grandin. I know you guys are going to love that. On Wednesday, we are told that we have Dr. Doreen Grampshay here with us answering your questions live. Let's keep our fingers crossed to that. And then on Friday, and we're to be announced, because we have a big guest that may be here on Thursday, but I can't say yet. But on Friday, we have Katrina Aguilera, the singer that Joanne knows, because she sang at an event that you benefited from. She's like off the charts remarkable, right?
She's musical comedy, and she's unbelievable. She went to Boston Conservatory.
Yeah, she's lovely.
On the spectrum.
She's going to be joining Nancy and I here for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're really excited to have her. We had her on the show briefly when you were here with Kiki.
Just a video, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're we're excited to have her back. We had her just a little bit live from her backyard. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but is Clifford Bell going to be with her, or she's coming all on her own?
My understanding is she's coming all on her own.
Good, she lives in San Diego.
Well, she'll Skype with us.
Oh,
she'll Skype, but we'll have a full interview with her. Where before it was just, like a couple of seconds.
Good, yeah.
So anyway, we're really excited to bring you that and more. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Good morning and welcome to Autism Live on World Autism Awareness Day. Our very special guest this morning, as you can see right from the jump, is the fabulous and wonderful Dr. Temple Grandin. Dr. Grandin, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Well, it's really great to be here.
Well, and I mentioned before we got started that I wanted to take just a second at the top of the show to talk about World Autism Awareness Day, that this is a day that was created by the United Nations, and it is a day that asks all nations to step forward, to think about individuals who are on the autism spectrum and to find ways to bring the dignity of these individuals together and to call nations to ask them to problem solve, to be able to get resources to these individuals and for them to be treated with the respect that they so richly deserve. Every year they have a special message to nations, a call to action about a specific thing. I don't know what they intended for this year's call to action to be, but it is in fact that individuals with the autism spectrum are treated fairly during this COVID emergency, that they do not lose resources that are vital to them, that they don't lose progress that was hard won and fought for them, and that they continue in this emergency to have access to medical care, that there is consideration given to how they need to access the medical care, and that they continue to have access to all of the things that a person, any person has the right to, things that shelter, employment, education, all of those things. I think we can all agree how important that is. And I'm so excited because we have Dr. Grandin here today to be answering your questions live. I just want to say that there are lots of ways to connect with us right now. If you're watching us on autism-live.com, then you know that there's a chat button at the very bottom. I'm monitoring what you guys write in. That's completely anonymous. We are also monitoring comments on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter. So you can be writing in on any of those right now. Dr. Grandin, should I go ahead and jump in with a question that we had? Okay, so, and of course, I'm gonna find it here, and I had it, and then I don't know where it went. It was a question that we had about a 4-year-old, a parent asking for how can we get our 4-year-old to connect with us? And of course, in this moment in time, I cannot find the actual for it. Hang on a second. I don't know where it is, but it was about a 4-year-old. How do we get him to interact with us? And she said that she feels that it seems like he's very in his own world and wanting to connect with him as much as possible as a 4-year-old.
Well, the first thing, I don't know whether this 4-year-old can talk or not. Now, if this 4-year-old can talk, you always want to give him an opportunity to use his words. Let's say he wants the juice. Instead of giving him the juice, quietly say to him, use your words. And then you've got to give him time to respond. These kids are sort of like a phone on maybe only one bar of surface. It takes time to load the web page or whatever. Give them time to respond. Always make opportunities to use your words. Another thing is engaging in little turn-taking games. Let's say he's spinning a wheel on a toy car. Well, let's take turns spinning the wheel on the toy car. Turn it into a turn-taking game.
No, I just, I muted myself so that you could speak. We had another question, and you and I had talked about it briefly before we came on. It was a longer question. I'm going to consolidate it. That a mom wrote in. She's a mom with 3 kids. 2 have other diagnoses. She's 37. She has Tourette syndrome. One of her children has ADHD and another has autism, but they all exhibit some form of a sensory issue. They've all toe walked and they have these different issues. She says, we're all different, but we're the same. And she's wanting to know from you, she suspects that even though her diagnosis is Tourette's and her daughter's is ADHD, she's wondering if maybe they also have autism to a lesser degree and what these 3 things might have in common.
I wanted you to talk about that.
Look up research on Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar is the scientific version of Google. And if you go on Google Scholar, you type in autism and ADHD, you're going to find, and genetics, you're going to find there's genetic crossover. There's also crossover in brain scans where some of the features are the same. See, these diagnostic categories are not precise. It's not like a COVID test. And I want to say a high quality COVID test done correctly that will give you a definitive diagnosis. It's not precise. These categories have blurry boundaries. Sensory issues, those happen in many different disorders, both developmental and head injuries. You also can get sensory issues. So their social awkwardness tends to go with a number of these different things. It's not real precise.
Okay. We have a question specifically about the COVID-19 emergency. A parent writes in and says, what advice do you have for a 17-year-old on the spectrum who is having acute anxiety about COVID-19? And they want to know specifically what has helped you with anxiety.
I have researched every piece of scientific literature on the shelf in the pharmacy medications that might treat COVID. And even before Donald Trump talked about hydroxychloroquine, I already had found that drug. So just knowing that there's things to possibly treat it. Now, I want to emphasize a lot of stupid things have been done with drugs. Hoarding, it's totally bad. People need that drug for lupus. They need it for rheumatoid arthritis. Also, it's never to be used for prevention. It's to be used for moderate to severe COVID. All the tests haven't been done, but there are things to treat it. Computers right now are finding even more things. So that made me less afraid that there's actually some stuff to treat it. And also I've looked at the statistics. I am in the at-risk group. I probably have a 4% chance of dying. Well, Ebola is a 30% chance. Another thing that put it in perspective for me is I fell 5 years ago in my own bathtub. And a week later, I realized I had a dent here at the base of my skull. That bathtub came that close to killing me. The number didn't come up. I'm more worried about the bathtub. But the reason why everybody's got to stay in their homes is if everybody went out of their homes, well, the hospitals wouldn't even be able to treat people. Right now in New York, they're taking refrigerated trucks. I have to say that's something we use in my industry to haul food in, and they're putting dead bodies in them. That's really horrible. You just would, if too many people got sick all at once, the hospitals cannot deal with that. There's a lot of things that have to be learned, such as if you get COVID, how long do you stay immune? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Hopefully a long time. If there's a vaccine gets developed, is it going to have to be a flu shot every year, or will it be like one of the more permanent kinds of vaccine? I don't think people know at this point. But I find that in my animal behavior research, if you turn on the seek emotion, that turns off fear. You might want to look at the Jack Penskep emotional systems in my book, Animals Make Us Human. And while I'm looking up all this information online, that made me less afraid, because there are some things to treat it with, and they need to learn how to use those things, and they need to learn how to use them quickly, because we want to try to prevent people from going on respirators.
Yeah. I think everybody's entitled to a certain amount of anxiety about this, but a lot of it is that there's so much of this that isn't in our control. But what I'm hearing you say is that you felt more in control when you did some research.
I did some research and I found out that now you've got doctors and dentists hoarding this drug. This is bad. Then you've got people that have lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. You see, what these drugs do is they stop the horrible inflammation in the lungs. They put out the fire of inflammation. People with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis that can't get this drug. That is really bad.
Yeah, we need to be very considerate.
Not okay.
No, it is not. And Julie has written in and said, our 15-year-old hardly speaks and spends way too much time in his room. He only comes out to eat, shower, and use the restroom. He refuses to go anywhere and refuses to cut his hair. With COVID-19, his socialization has critically decreased. Telecounseling starts next week, and they said help.
Well, I've talked to two boys that got totally addicted to video games. And one of the things that saved them, now I realize this would be hard to do now, is they got interested in fixing cars and doing robotics. And for one of the students, he's now fixing cars. Another one is fixing trains for the railroad. They found out that mechanics was more interesting than video games. So what we got to do is give him a replacement for whatever he's doing in his room. You have to replace it with something else. Now, and I like to make things. That's why I came up with this little book, a little book, Calling All Minds. It's all my childhood things to make. Some of these things people could make things. We've got to figure out other stuff to do, but you have to replace the video game with something else. Now, and with all this stuff going on now with COVID, these games where people could talk to each other, a certain amount of that I think would be good. 5 hours a day, no, but maybe an hour or so a day to talk to their friends online. But you have to replace it with something else. So, see, the first thing I'm going to ask the parents, does this kid like to do anything else other than playing video games? I'm going to assume that he's doing either that or movies or something like that constantly.
Well, and we'll wait to see if she writes us back to tell us what other things he likes. You and I had an opportunity right before we came on live, because she mentioned the telehealth, to talk a little bit about telehealth. And because you were saying to me how important it was for the little kids to continue to get their therapy. We were talking absolutely. We were talking about how it is a medically necessary treatment, and that when you can continue services in whatever way you can continue services, that it's advisable to do that. And we were sort of talking about telehealth and about, you said something that I thought was really interesting. I was telling you how impressed I am with parents, how parents have stepped up and said, teach me how to do this. I want to know how to do this. And that they're sometimes being the facilitators while the therapist does therapy via telehealth. And do you remember what you said, Temple? You said, I know these parents
what the therapist can do is they can coach the parent over the video link on how to do the speech therapy, how to do the ABA. It's very important with the young children to do a lot of turn taking. That was a lot of emphasis on that. We can play board games and things like that. That's stuff we could do. And they can coach the parents on how to work with the child, because we've got to keep working on speech. I don't want to lose, months of working on a kid to get them talking.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to have we want to really minimize regression and see if we can continue on. But I was really inspired when you said, because I said, a lot of parents are afraid that they can't do it. And you said
they can, but they need professional coaching. Okay, back before COVID, people would ask me, they'd say, oh, our school does, 2 hours of speech a week or something like that. And I said, well, that's not enough. But I said, what it is enough for is for that teacher to be a coach, to teach you and teach some volunteers on how to work with your kid. And you need to look at that hour of therapy you get a week from the school as they're your coach, because I definitely believe in professional guidance. And that can be done, over the video. Another thing that got brought up on distance education is whether there are enough devices. I mean, if the parents have a job online, they're going to need a computer. Trying to do school on a phone is like completely atrocious. Then if there's only one decent computer, then we're going to have to figure out how to take turns on it. This is where making a new schedule. I've read some, I'm a big NASA fan. You took me out to Houston, NASA.
That was so much fun.
It was really fun. I'm a total NASA geek. And you have to, on the space station, people have to live together. They need some alone time. They also have very structured work time. They have to not make messes in the bathroom and things like that. If there's only one computer, then we're gonna have to make a schedule on how it gets used.
Yeah.
In fact, and sometimes it depends what kind of work the parent has. Then there's some stuff that will have to be done on a phone, but then we need to figure out which things need the big computer, the big screen.
Yeah, I loved, because you and I were reminiscing about that trip to NASA and talking about that, because they took us into the model, the actual size model of the space station. That was really cool. It was so cool, but picturing people living in that small of a space and knowing that they can't go out to the store, it really sets an example for us of how we have to live. We have to cohabitate in a respectful way, and that they take care of business every day. I know you were saying earlier this morning, keeping to that schedule, getting up every morning, getting dressed, important.
I'm making sure that I am dressed for work by 8. Not be slouching around in pajamas. I think that's important. And then if hopefully there's enough devices available, for me, if I was doing courses online, I'd get my heavy duty schoolwork done in the morning, or heavy duty report writing. If it's let's say a parent, you're really hard work where you got to think, done in the morning when you're fresh. That's what works for me. And then you can do easier jobs in the afternoon, have time off. One thing they did learn on the space station is that they do have to, each astronaut has to have some alone time where he can talk in private on the laptop, you know, to the family, watch a movie by himself. And then there's other activities that eat together. That's something they do together. And then you have to make sure that, you know, people, before they go up there, get to pick what food they want. There's some choices. Well, somebody's got to not be taking somebody else's food. This is the sort of thing that would really cause a lot of friction on the space station.
Well, one of the questions that we had come in early, Temple, was that somebody was asking, what is your preferred food during this COVID emergency? Like, what's the one food that you keep stockpiled in your house because you really can't do without it?
Well, I really like some dark chocolate, but I've got to make sure people have given me a lot of that I'm really limiting how much of that I eat. I still am eating the same yogurt and fruit for breakfast. I have that. Fortunately, I've got people shopping for me, which I really appreciate. And it's been making me think about food in a different way. You know, and my boss, most of the time they buy stuff I like. I bought some stuff I did not like, but I had to eat it. We cannot be wasting food. When you've got people in that Amazon warehouse or some other place that are getting it ready for you, that every trip to the grocery store, there's an exposure risk. No, you eat it.
Absolutely.
There was some sliced processed turkey that I really hate, and it's getting eaten.
There you go. You're a good role model. Now we've got a couple of people who are writing in and letting you know that that they themselves have had diagnoses. One who says, I got a late diagnosis. What services would you recommend to help me cope? And another person,
is this a teenager or an older adult? I don't need to know the exact age, but I need to know, am I dealing with a 10-year-old, a teenager, or an older adult?
Well, they're saying they got a late diagnosis, so I think you're talking about an actual adult.
Well, there's a lot of people. We have a book, Different Not Less, which is 14 old Asperger's or people diagnosed on the spectrum later on in life. And where they found it really made a difference was with their relationships. You see, this is where, you know, I had a lady come up to me in the Denver airport one time, and she said, oh, now I understand my engineer husband after I read your book, Thinking in Pictures. Now, on the job front, I think some people are getting too overcoddled when they should be getting out and learning work skills, because all the people in the Different Not Less book had jobs ranging from a tour guide at a history museum to IT and a medical doctor, all different kinds of jobs. I didn't just fill it up with the computer geeks, and half of them are on the autism spectrum out there in Silicon Valley. I've been there. They avoid the labels. But
absolutely,
the first step is realizing, you know, that you think differently. And for relationships, that it's been a good thing for a lot of people. And that's why I did the Different Not Less book. And all of the people in that book are employed.
Wonderful. I should point out that Temple has been prolific and written a lot of books that are really amazing resources. And you can find all of her books on Temple. They're available on Amazon. Look at that.
New edition of The Way I See It. Brand new 5th edition of The Way I See It. A whole lot of little short articles. We updated it. Just came off the press about a week ago.
Wonderful. And so people can go to templegrandin.com to get the books, but they're also available on Amazon if you want to put it in your Amazon cart as part of your delivery. Now, Katie has written in and said, I have anxiety a lot. I have autism and ADHD, and I'm worried a lot. How can you help me with my anxiety? But Katie does not say how old she is. Katie,
this is the problem. You see, because I've been on antidepressant medication since my early 30s. Because as I went through my 20s, my anxiety got worse and worse and worse. My body was like in a constant state of fright. I remember telling Dustin Hoffman when he did Rain Man, imagine how nervous you were when you did your first interview to land that a big part like that. Well, that's the way I feel all the time. And in my book, Thinking in Pictures, I describe what it was like before and then taking antidepressants. I've worked with other people that are visual thinkers, that are very, very anxious, and they've been able to remain employed by taking a low dose of Prozac. I'm taking one of the old-fashioned drugs. The mistake that gets made with antidepressants when they're used for anxiety is too high a dose. Label doses are often way too high. You might have to take only half to 3/4 of a label dose on some of these different drugs. But basically, antidepressants saved me. I don't think I would be here. And one of the things that happened with me is some of my stress-related health problems cleared up. The colitis cleared up. But, there's a place for medication. Now, way too many meds are given to little kids. That's why I wanted to know age. Now, I was a full-fledged adult when I took it.
Okay.
My brain was now, fully developed. But there's some people that are going to need a little help from biochemistry, and that's why the chapter is called A Believer in Biochemistry. The other thing that helps is exercise. I'm doing now modified push-ups every night. I was doing sit-ups, but my sciatic nerve acted up, so then I had to change that to modified push-ups. And what I do is a burst of hard exercise. And if I don't do that every night, I cannot sleep. So that needs to be something people get into their schedule. And I had already developed exercises I could do in a hotel room. I don't really like going to the gym in a hotel, something I could do in the room. And I want to warn you that the first time I did the sit-ups, I could do like 2. You have to work up to it over several months. But those are things that helped me. The other thing is there's a point where you just got to get out and do things. Mother always gave me a choice. When I was 15, I was afraid to go to my aunt's ranch. Mother gave me a choice. I could go for a week or I could go all summer. Not going, that wasn't going to be one of the choices, but always choices. But there's a point where I recommend reading that one chapter in particular on how I dealt with anxiety. And the thing that was weird is that when the colitis flared up, I was less anxious. It was really, really weird.
Interesting.
But I don't think I'd have any insides left if I hadn't gone on the medication. And I know other people professionally, visual thinkers, one that's definitely autistic, other 2 are definitely not autistic, where a little dose of Prozac kept them off the drugs and the alcohol. And they'd be in the gutter if they weren't on the Prozac.
Wow. Now, our mom who asked before about the young man who is in his room all the time, the 15-year-old, she has written back to us and she said that you were right. He is obsessed with video games. She says his school was creating a special project for him, for him and a group to create a new sign for the school. With the school being closed, that is on hold. He loves art. We brought more than $200 in supplies at Christmas as a Christmas gift, but he has no interest in any of it, Temple.
Well, you can still design a new sign for the school, and you can display it online and show it to people, and you can still work on design stuff. This is still going on now. Like we're doing cattle stuff. Mark, my assistant's doing cattle stuff, and we can't go anywhere. We can't travel, but we're still doing design work. People write into me about livestock stuff. We're still doing it.
But Temple, how did your mother motivate you? I'm always amazed by the fact that your mother was so ahead of the curve. And you have told me before that if left to your own devices, you would have sat and spun the little metal plate at the end of your bed. And that's what you would have done all day long. How did your mom get you out of the bedroom, get you into the stalls with the horses, and then get you drawing horses? How did she get you to do that?
Drawing horses, I was doing in about 3rd grade, because when I was in 3rd grade, I would just draw the same horse head over and over again. And she just suggested, well, let's draw the entire horse. Let's draw its saddle, draw its stable. Okay, you have a kid that loves cars. Well, let's look at different kinds of cars. In other words, take that fixation and broaden it so it's not quite so fixated. That's what people need to be doing. Figure out how to broaden it. And then when I went away to the special boarding school, I loved riding the horses, and I still had some problems with anger. I had to turn anger to crying. That's how I got rid of anger. And They took riding away for 2 weeks after I got in a fist fight in the cafeteria. And, you know, then we had remodeled the horse barn at our school, and they suggested to start taking care of the horses. And I started doing it and liking it. You see, people have got to try stuff. You know, we've got to replace, give them a choice. You can do this art project or this. In other words, give them a choice of things to replace what you're doing. I was allowed to spin the little brass plate on my bed for an hour a day. Then we had to do something else. I could go outside and play with my kite, for example. But we're going to do something else, but always give some choices. But the choice isn't going to be in your room all day, but you do have some downtime, do stuff like that. And they found they had to give the astronauts on the space station an hour a day, which just be their alone time.
So many people are writing in so many wonderful things saying what a gift to have Temple's opinion and thank you. And a mom who has written in and said that you helped her so much that years ago you were able to be on the phone with her and that you helped to get her child to eat and that it was just a dream to be on the phone with you. So just want to acknowledge that there's so much love being poured out to you right now.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I just want to, you know, this is a difficult time. I mean, I've had all my events are canceled for the next 2 months. Everything is canceled. My last airplane trip, last event was on March 11th. I got on a plane on the 12th. They had a faculty meeting the next day. They were going to close school. That was Friday the 13th. And we were told to get our classes online. Boom, like that.
And how are you finding the online teaching? Because they're wanting to know what you think about this online teaching and what about the kids who are at home and don't have access to online curriculum, what your thoughts are about that.
Well, then
let's start with, are you enjoying the teaching online? It's different, right?
Well, I miss the interaction. I've given my phone number to all the students. I'm begging them to talk to me. Now it's totally ruined the labs for everybody because we were kicked out so quickly that there was no way to videotape the labs. I'm not allowed to go to the experiment station. So that really is bad. Now, other parts of the class, the lectures, I had 3 of them already online, and the 3 others we put on a website that's used for the university online learning. So the lectures are there. I have a project where they have to do look up journal articles online on a subject that each student picks on animal behavior that interests them. That we can still do just fine. They're still going to do the drawing project, and then to turn it in, they're going to have to screenshot it with their phone. And then I get on the chat board every afternoon and make replies.
And so you're making it work.
Make it work.
Right.
And I had to learn how to use the stuff. I had to get my students to teach me how to use it. And it's like, boom, you got to do this.
For the parents that are home and have kiddos that are home that are on the spectrum that typically would have had an aide in the classroom and are now faced with the teacher being online and the kiddos aren't responding well to it, do you have any words of wisdom?
Well, the thing is going to be really hard on the parents. The parents are going to have to be the aide. I don't know anything else to say. Now, I'm recommending that we're going to get up. We're going to not be in jammies. We're going to get dressed for school, dressed for work. I think that applies to the whole family. And let's get some of the serious schoolwork done in the morning when you're not tired and cranky, and save the easier stuff for the afternoon. Then we have then you have an hour where you can play your video game, and then you can go walk the dog. Then we do some exercises. Maybe we get group exercises online or something, but make a new schedule the same way they do in the space station. They schedule their meals, they schedule when they have to do their experiments, but they also have scheduled downtime.
Yeah, in fact, you can pretend that you're on the space station.
Well, that's sort of like what it's like.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like. And then for parents, they're also wanting to know if there isn't anything online that's being offered, do you have any recommendations?
Well, then I would go on some of the homeschooling websites and maybe buy some workbooks, buy some materials online. Now, one of the problems that's happening with Amazon warehouse now is they may run out of books because they have to stock essentials. But the books are available electronically. So if you buy a Kindle or some other device like that, That I'm sure that's considered essential, but no, you need to get some materials. I'd get on the homeschooling websites and I would try to find materials. And we're going to have some classes. We're going to have to have a time where we're going to do schoolwork, whether it's actually online or you're going to do it with some materials. There's tons of free stuff online. Let me tell you how to find some really cool mathematics stuff. Use Google Images to search for mathematics stuff. You will find websites you will not find on regular Google. You want to see the cool patterns? Go to Google Images, type in protein symmetry. Let the math kids go play with that.
You and I talked about this last week, and I've been having fun with it all week long. Because when I called Temple to see if she was available to do this, and she was like, "Are you near your computer? Look this up right now." And I said to you, I said, "Temple, I'm looking at these beautiful pictures. What am I looking at?" And do you remember what you said to me?
Well, you're looking at things like the mitochondria of the cell that provide energy for your body to work.
Yeah, but you said to me, you're looking at the art that is inside your body.
That's right. That's
and
right.
And that got me very excited.
Very cool. And there's so many, now for computer programming, there's Scratch programming, there's a code.org. That's another thing. Coursera has a lot of free college classes. Now, if you want them for credit, you're going to have to pay, but there's a lot of free stuff online that you can do where you can take college classes online, really cool college classes.
You turned me on to Khan Academy. You're the person.
Khan Academy.
Yeah, Khan is KHAN academy.org, you guys. And Temple was the first person to tell me about that. And they have curriculum aligned information for everything from pre-K through 12. It's an incredible, and actually above that, it's an incredible place. And you're the one who told me, and I got my son on there. It changed everything. And it's free. So you can't beat that.
All this stuff I'm talking about is free.
Okay, some more questions here. Now that adult that we were trying to figure out, he said he was diagnosed at 58. How exciting is that? And that he was nonverbal until he was 5. And that was that person that we were talking to about things that could help, resources that could help. So it was an adult. Good. Another person says that they have a 5-year-old who has good vocabulary, but how can I encourage him to talk? He's simply not interested to talk. Used to talk when he was below 2 years.
Well, always make opportunities for talking. If he wants a food or he wants a toy, say, use your words, and then give him time to respond. These, if the website doesn't come up right away and you're poking the mouse and stuff, and then the computer just freezes, well, that's the way these kids are. You might have to give them 5 seconds to respond. That's a long time if you time it. But always have opportunities to use language. Okay, let's have some sit-down meals now, like we used to have in the 50s, where if I put my fingers in the mashed potatoes, mother would say, use the fork. If I reached across to grab the serving dish, mother would say, ask your sister to pass it. Give the instruction. Then you might ask him what he did what he did on his online learning, or a movie he looked at. In other words, each member of the family would tell something they did that day. I think this is one of the ways to get language going, because that's what they do at the space station. They eat together.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, Angela wants to know about relationships. I have a 17-year-old that doesn't have friends outside of school or sports. Not sure what to do. Is there a website that teens hang out on?
Well, it's friends through shared interests. I mean, I've got friends, and there are people where we do cattle stuff together, or it's animal behavior, or it's autism stuff, where it's a shared interest. Robotics, of course, when school is going, things like art, robotics, choir, all the things we can't do now. Those are things that would be a shared interest. Fixing cars. I had friends that that built equipment. Those are things that are a shared interest.
Yeah, there was a study that was done years ago about how to make kids bully proof, how to get them to be less bullied by their peers. And what they found was that if they created a club after school, and it could literally be that kid creating a club about their interest,
that it attracted other people to whatever their interest was, and then they formed a pack, and they were less likely to be picked on, all of them.
Well,
and I sort of thought that was fascinating.
That's a good idea, because the only places I was not bullied in high school was horseback riding, model rockets, things where there was a shared interest. Now, fortunately, when I was in elementary school, I went to a very small elementary school, really small little classes. And the teacher explained to the other students that I had a disability that didn't show, like crutches or a wheelchair, and that the other kids need to be helping me. And that has a fancy name. It's called peer-mediated intervention. And you can, I do have a free paper online. It's called How Horses Help a Teen with Autism to Make Friends and Learn How to Work. Type that title into Google, you can find it.
Okay. You mentioned before that you got into trouble at school because you got angry and that you learned to deal with the anger through crying. I'm always fascinated though, what made you angry? Like, why did you punch that person in the...
They had bullied me. They had called me names. They had bullied me. That was the reason. And I had to switch from anger to crying. And another thing with NASA, I went to a really sad thing where when they had on 60 Minutes, when the space shuttle got canceled, these NASA space scientists were crying. And that's one of the reasons why they still have their jobs, because they were throwing tools. NASA would have fired them for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's better to cry. Bunny wants to know, I just picked up my son who is 9-year-old and has ASD and is semi-verbal, his learning materials. It's a big box of materials and I have no idea or how long to work. I'm on the spectrum as well, so I need directions.
Well, some kids can, concentrate longer than others. Some kids are really hyperactive. You got to do a little bit of learning and then give them breaks. It's going to depend upon the kid. And there's others that can knuckle down and, put a bunch of work out. I think another thing that might help with the kid is let him have some choices of which things we do first, so he has some control over the environment. We're going to get the schoolwork done, but we can have some choice of when we do some of the different activities. And some kids can do a lot of work at one time. Other kids need breaks. They need sensory breaks. I think one of the worst things schools did was taking out recess. Another thing that schools did that was really bad was taking out hands-on classes. If I had not had sewing and woodworking and art, I would have hated elementary school. So let's work craft projects. And of course, here's my book on the things I used to like to do as a kid, Calling All Minds, and making things. Maybe we can work math into making things. We can think of creative ways to do things. I'm finding right now, the day that I've got graduate students right now with awful writing skills. They don't know how to sort of frame an argument for something. And the reason why they're so bad is they never had to write book reports, and they never had anybody mark up their work, and then they had to go back and correct it. And this is something that's gotten really bad in the last 5 years, and I'm not the only professor that's been complaining about this problem.
Well, and the thing is that this period of time, regardless of whether we wanted it or not, we are forced to have this opportunity where we could do all kinds of things. So maybe at school, they're not going to stop and have a break and teach sewing, but we absolutely can do that.
You can do that. You can
we absolutely
work up. You can do it like a lot of older people. I'd rather just get a big slug of it done in the morning, but there may be another kid where you do a little 15 minutes of work and then you do something else and it's spread out through all the day.
Yeah.
But you need to eventually, you got to figure out some kind of a schedule where
absolutely. Now, Alexis has written in and said, because we were talking about video games before, they said a lot of video games aren't a problem. Get the kid to learn how to, learn how to. They may either, for videos that teach people how to play or teach them how to run massive multiplayer games. Now, Temple, I'm wondering, have you seen any of the games that are VR? Have you done the thing where you put the...
I've done virtual reality. I haven't done it in a video game, but I've done it in just a demonstration. They have ones that teach job skills. Well, and they make it fun. Well, that's good. Some of that stuff would be good. Like maybe it's a video game of how to interact with customers in a store. Yeah. That's something that could be helpful. You see, there's a lot of things you can learn from video games, but absolutely, that's an hour a day of doing it. Okay, eye-hand coordination, some problem solving. So that's 1 hour a day of doing it, not 5 or 6 hours a day. The benefits you would get in 1 hour.
Now, Nikki has written in on Facebook and she wants to know, what coping skills can I use when our internet or cable goes out? My autistic son beats himself, attacks others till it's fixed. I've tried social stories, a box of things he enjoys to keep him busy, but it doesn't work. He even goes so far as pulling his own hair out. Please, how to help with his anxiety about cable and internet connection not working? Thanks. She says this is a major problem.
Ooh, well, one of the things first of all, let's try to work on getting him to do some other things where he's not so dependent on the internet connection. Does he have a dog? Would he like to learn how to cook? Would he like to learn how to do some hands-on thing? I'd like to try to get less dependency on the internet, that there's other things that you can do. And
absolutely.
And now there's still, if you have DVDs around, you can have some DVDs that you could play. You probably can buy a DVD player online so that you've got some movies stored. So when the cloud crashes, you could still have things to do. You see, the problem is the internet circuits are getting overloaded.
Yes, it is. I keep, keeping my fingers crossed that we get to get this live feed out. But I also want to put a plug in for those of you who are having ABA with your kiddos and you're doing that telehealth piece that Temple was talking about before, where they're coaching you. This would be sort of an ideal thing to ask for coaching on from your ABA professional to help you to set up parameters and an intervention so that you knew what to do when it was happening and you knew what to do before it was happening. I just want to throw that 2 cents in.
Well, I'd like to try to work with this kid to have less dependency on the internet.
Absolutely.
And let's start working on gradually getting him to do some other things that have nothing to do with a screen, so that screens aren't his whole entire life. And
Yes.
you're going to have to do that gradually and give him some choices, because the internet is going to go down. That's going to happen.
It is going to happen. Manuel wants to know, my daughter is nonverbal and very hyperactive. She's 9 years old. What would you recommend to help her? And he says, it's a pleasure watching you both live. It's a pleasure being here with you. And I don't know about you, I got so excited about seeing Temple's Kitchen. That was a big, woohoo for me today.
I read a really, really funny thing online that some employees, has this big, huge, super important vice president boss, and he couldn't get away from looking at the guy's kitchen cabinets. Right. And I read that on a thing about, working online. They just couldn't imagine that this big vice president might even have kitchen cabinets.
Right. I'm like, Temple, there are things
have.
Right. There are things on your refrigerator. And before this is done, I need to know what things are on your refrigerator.
Well,
it's exciting to me.
There's a bison on there, and there's a cute little puppy on there. Then there's some little magnets that were given to me of some artwork.
Well, fabulous. But now back to the nonverbal, very hyperactive 9-year-old. What would you recommend, Temple?
Well, let's try to work on things where he can, mother used to say, run the energy out of you. Okay.
And it's a girl, it's a daughter.
Exercise things, some sensory things. His mother says, run the energy out of you. So we got to try to figure out some things that he can do. I don't know if he lives in an apartment or what he lives in. But he's going to have, the other thing I'm going to ask is, what was he doing before COVID? What kind of situation was he in? You see, this is where I got to have more information, and how well was he functioning in his previous situation?
Yes, it is a girl. He mentioned that it's his daughter.
Right. Girl,
but
okay.
One of the things we've been talking about on the show is that even for people who are in apartment buildings, I just keep remembering, Temple, back to when I was a young girl and we didn't have the internet. And a lot of times we got snowed in for days on end because I lived in upstate New York.
We play in the snow.
Right?
We went out and played in the snows. And then I was taught turn taking, where I'd roll the bottom ball of the snowman. My sister would do the middle ball. Then I would do the head. And then we had a box of old junk, the snowman decoration box. And it just had silly things in it, like hats and scarves and things like old pill bottles. We'd use those for eyes. It was
Wonderful.
just now, of course, there were no pills in those bottles, empty pill bottles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there
And
was also a lot of time when we were kids that we had to be stuck indoors, and we would make an obstacle course in the living room, and we would create ways that, and my mom would help us to create ways that we could get our yayas out. That's what we always called it. So even if you can't go outside, you can't get to a park, you don't have any place to take your kids, but you're in your apartment, turn your apartment into an obstacle course and make them run the obstacle course. Kids need exercise.
well, we used to play horses when I was a kid, and since I was big and strong, I was always the horse. Somebody light on ride me. But that, you know, and then we had a brown rug in our TV room. That was the corrals, and then the living room was the pasture because they had a green rug, and that takes up a lot of energy.
And that kind of play, it actually requires a lot of cognition. It helps you to work on all the different kinds of plays that there are of taking something and endowing it with other qualities, doing imaginary play, doing sociodramatic play, and it's really good for our kids. So, you know, it's really important, especially for those hyperactive kids, to be able to have a way to move their body. Even, you know, we were recommending the other day, rearrange your furniture, like push the furniture around, push it back to where it was. But that pushing kind of things activates heavy work. Exactly. So good for that.
Also, if you've got an OT that you could get on a teleconference, you know, could give you some coaching, and that might be helpful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another question here. Good morning. Have a question. What do you do when your son doesn't want to be with another person? My son doesn't want to be with my little girl. And you were talking about if we had two astronauts that didn't like each other, how would we help them to work this out?
Well, probably be spending some time apart, opposite ends of the space station. Oh, and there's been problems where on one of the not the U.S. space station, but a Russian space station, they felt they were overworked and they turned off the communications of mission control, and which wasn't the best thing to be doing. But now some people on the spectrum have problems with the high pitched, like a baby's cry, the voice. You know, could that be the issue? You know what? Sometimes it's sensory. I get asked all the time about autistic people and animals, and what I say is there's three ways that they react to animals: love them, scared at first, then love them, and then ones where it won't work because they never know when the dog's going to bark because you can't control the dog, and then it hurts their ears. Now, other sounds that you can control, like the vacuum cleaner, or maybe some other hair dryer or something like that, if the child can turn it on and control it, that can often be really helpful. Where they turn it on and off, they might get to like the vacuum cleaner, but you can't control a little sister screaming or whatever. And if it's sound sensitivity, well, then you can wear a headset then when she's around, but you can't wear a headset all the time. It'll make your ear more sensitive, but you have it with you all the time, but you want to try not to wear it. Again, give him control, but I got to find out why he doesn't like his little sister. And sometimes things like that are sensory based. Now, I don't know. I'd have to ask a lot more questions.
Okay. Another question, Dr. Grandin, I have a son who is 10. He loves to build cages for animals. It is all he wants to do. How can I foster this interest, but still get him to do his schoolwork?
Well, we can have a time to do his building things, and then has to be a time for doing schoolwork. We might give him some choices of the times on the schedule, but you are going to have to do some schoolwork.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I might do, if you could get the teacher on the phone or something and ask for help. I think a lot of these teachers would be available by phone, and maybe the teacher can give you some ideas.
Absolutely. Katie wants to know, have you heard about the cholesterol study at OSU that's carnitine cholesterol absorption issues, talking about regressives, mitochondrial disorders, and apraxia, and she wants to know if you know anything about that.
I would recommend you go to Google Scholar and look things up. Now, I know myself, I have to eat a certain amount of meat. There's no way I could be a vegan. My mother's the same way. We got to eat a certain amount of meat. I think there are differences in metabolism, but I would recommend doing Google Scholar search to look that stuff up. And how do you get on Google Scholar? Type Scholar into Google, click it. You'll see a link that says Google Scholar. Click on that. That will give you a new search box that takes you into the scientific literature.
Wonderful. I love this question. Temple, you are so awesome. I want to know what you were doing with your free time during COVID-19. Are you watching Netflix too? And what are you watching?
Well, I've just started watching the new Star Trek Picard show. I love it. I
Yeah?
just love it. And but I'm not binge watching it.
Okay.
I think how about one episode a day?
Right.
And then maybe do some other show. You see, I think we need to get a more, restrained schedule here.
And so that
not just binge watch the whole thing.
Right. Well, I happen to know that show is on it's on CBS Access only. So it and for a while it only comes out once a week. So but
then they leave the episodes online.
Yes.
Because
so if you're just starting now, you've got like what 6, 7 episodes.
That's right, and you can start watching those. And
Yes.
Amazon does have it. You can get it that way too.
Have you had the opportunity to meet Patrick Stewart?
Never have met Patrick Stewart, but I did have the opportunity one time to meet Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, I'll bet that was super cool.
Yeah, that was.
Now I did not have the opportunity while he was alive to meet Leonard Nimoy, but I have met Patrick Stewart. He would probably think you were the most fabulous thing
I
ever.
loved Mr. Spock, and I loved Data, because I really related to those characters because they're like an autistic person.
Yes.
There's a lot of subtle emotional things that I still don't pick up.
Now, are you watching? There's a lot of things on television right now, Temple, where they're featuring characters who are on the autism spectrum. Are you watching any of those?
Good Doctor show. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, a person with autism, as they get more and more, do more and more stuff, to start to learn, and learn, what gets people upset and things like that. But I still have got, I have problems because I tend to be very, very logical, and I found that looking up online, medications that could treat COVID, that greatly reduced the fear. I remember when I first found some of the drugs, I'm going, wait a minute, I'm not going to die. There are some things to treat it with.
Yeah. And that's a very healing thought. Navnet wants to know, my son does not speak and was diagnosed with autism when he was 1.8 years old. He is now 5.5 years old. What can we do to make him speak? We feel that he understands, takes us to what he wants, points fingers, murmurs some voices, kinds of words,
what was the age
but doesn't
again?
speak. He's 5.5 now.
Now, the thing I want to ask at 5.5, are you getting any words at all? See, this is where I want more information. There are some kids that aren't going to learn to speak, and they remain nonverbal. And there's some really good books to read. And one of my favorites is Tito Mukapadahay, How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? That's Tito Mukapadahay, How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? And he's in a sensory disordered world. And then there's the sequel to The Reason I Jump. And I like the sequel. It's got something like Fall Down 5 times, Get Up 6 times. It's got a weird title like that. And he talks about not being able to control his movements. And so now we got to give him a way to communicate if he's not talking at all. And maybe we need to introduce typing. Tito and Nomi, both Noki, both type independently, completely independently. And if we got kids that remain nonverbal, I think those 2 books are absolute must-reads, written by people on the spectrum.
Yeah, everybody that we know that that is nonverbal, that wasn't speaking as a child, and then has been given a device or given a method to have functional communication, they all say the same thing. They say how important it is to give children a way to communicate.
I agree.
And that it's different. I mean, I guess there's preferences, in the ABA world, they don't necessarily recommend having sign language be the preferred modem of communicating, because so many of us don't know sign language.
That's right. I would agree with that, but some way to communicate. And there's some that can type completely independently. There are others that can use communication devices. But I can remember the frustration of not being able to communicate and just screaming. And in one of my very first book, Emergence Labeled Autistic, mother was taking me to the speech therapist, and I didn't want to wear this hat, so I chucked it out the window of the car, and she tried to grab it, and we got hit by, sideswiped by a semi-trailer. He swerved off the road to save us, because I didn't want to wear this stupid hat. You see, that is frustration with not being able to communicate. It is a huge frustration.
Absolutely. We're running out of time. I'm going to ask one last question. Temple, you are the best. I am crying watching this. How can I find my son's special interest?
Well, I need to start asking a bunch of questions. That, if maybe it's a video game, well, what's a video game about? What's his favorite toys? I don't even know his age.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's really important on interests, I got interested in cattle when I was 15, when I was introduced to them on my aunt's ranch. So what this shows is that an interest can happen by introducing different things. Mm-hmm. And this is really important on careers. And I think learning how to work's really important. But I got introduced to cattle. And then you find out you like them. Or maybe you get introduced to something, you find out that you don't like it. That's important too.
Yeah.
But we need to be introducing kids to more things. I would have to ask a lot more questions. I don't know the age of him. I don't know how verbal he is. I don't know what's his favorite subject in school. I'll often ask that question. Well, maybe we can get an interest there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, and I don't know if they'll have time to write in, but I wanted, before I need to remind some people about things that are happening on the show, but before we leave, I want to ask about your mom. How is your mom doing?
Well, she's doing, and we got some groceries sent to her. She said she didn't need them, but she's done. She walks every day. She said she's got to keep walking. She's 93 years old, and she's got to keep walking, and she's doing really well.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. For so many of us, we all look up to you, Temple, and think that you are incredible. But for a lot of us moms, we also, we try to follow in your mom's footsteps, because look at what a great job she
Mother
did.
had a very good sense of how to push me. You got to stretch these kids. You don't chuck them in the deep end of the pool, but she had stretch and give choices. Stretch just outside the comfort zone. She had a really good instinct on exactly how much to stretch me and give me choices. Like when I went to my aunt's ranch, I could stay for a week or stay all summer. Not going wasn't one of the choices. But
Yeah.
I did have the choice that if I got too stressed out, I could come back. I got out there and I loved it. And I'm finding kids where he goes to maybe a sleepaway camp or something like that, and then he finds out he likes it. We got to get him doing things. Now we're going to have to figure out how to do things like now inside your own space station.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you've always pushed me with my son. My son has always appreciated, you probably don't remember, but years ago, we were in a restaurant together, a barbecue restaurant, and my son was, my goodness, he was probably 11, and he was complaining about the fact that I was not letting him go to the restroom by himself and that I would take him in the women's bathroom. And you read me the riot act, and we were in the restaurant with my son, and you made me stop right there. You talked him through the whole thing, and you made me
what
sit
I ended
there.
up doing? I waited until the end of the meal.
Yes,
Okay, we
you
had
did.
the whole meal, like for maybe 20 minutes or so. And at the end of the meal, I just casually said, okay, it's time to use the men's room. And he
Yes.
got up and he used it, and he had to ask the waiter where it was, because I could see, I was facing towards where the restrooms were. You were back to them. And he went and he successfully used the men's room.
Yes.
And I didn't tell him at the end of the meal, you're going to use the men's room.
No.
I just casually said, okay, it's time for you to go use it.
Yep. And you made me sit there, and and you talked me through it while he was in there, and you told me he was going to be okay. And you told me, you have to stretch him, Mom. You have to let those apron strings go further, because he needs it and he's ready for it.
And it was a barbecue restaurant. It was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
And there was nobody else would have been in that restroom. It wasn't busy. I could see the door and then see him come out.
Yep.
And he did it.
Yep, he did. And all because you talked me through it. And I appreciate that still to this day. And he does. He's like, Temple's on my side. I get to use the men's room. All right, we are about to be out of time, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And honestly, Temple, if you have more free time over the next couple of months, we're happy to have you back whenever you want.
Okay, as long as you have me back at 5 o'clock my time in Colorado.
Yes, we have you back later on today for a very specific group today that it's just a group for parents, and thrilled to have you then. But if you want to be back on Autism Live, we will make ourselves available whenever you want to do this.
I'll probably be happy to do that.
Well, wonderful. A couple of programming notes that I want to tell you guys. We are back tomorrow with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and our very special guest on the show tomorrow is Danny Bowman.
She is, and actually you have met her, Temple. She's a remarkable young woman in her 20s on the autism spectrum, brilliant artist, has her own animation studio, and she teaches animation to individuals on the spectrum. And she's offering a very special online class right now that's free.
Well,
she's going to tell us about that. So wonderful. And then we've got great programming for you next week. I want to let you guys know that a week from tomorrow, we're going to have Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope. There's another person that you know, Temple, that you've done things with Julie Matthews before. And she is getting ready to do a big summit that's online towards the end of this month that I think you're all going to want to know about, because it's about the food that we eat and how it affects us and how it affects our kiddos, and what foods we can do to keep what things we can do to keep our food supply, even in this emergency, as clean as possible so that our kids have healthy guts, which then helps them. And I know that that's something that you're very interested in as well, Temple. We all got to be healthy. And you were talking about the food supply, right?
Well, I'd say we got people out there, truck drivers, we need to be thanking them, people that work in these warehouses.
Absolutely.
Because you have the Amazon warehouse, but you take Walmart, Walmart has a warehouse, Target has a warehouse, all the grocery stores, they have these big distribution centers, huge supply chains that people have to work in to get that food into that store.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Julie's going to be talking with us a week from tomorrow. We've got great guests all next week, including Dr. Doreen Granpichet on Wednesday, here answering your questions. But we're a little bit past time. We have to let Temple go. She's got lunch plans.
Another appointment, so I'm going to have to go.
Temple, it's been such a pleasure. I'm going to talk to you later on today.
Okay, great. Wonderful to talk to you. I'm going to sign off now.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'm going to sign off too. We're going to be back tomorrow with Danny Bowman and Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for